Hearing these words, everyone's expression showed slight emotion, especially those earliest people of Great Xia. They knew well that Xia Hong had never abandoned ordinary people on the dirt slope before, and was fully capable of saying such things. So they did not doubt the truth of Xia Chuan's last statement. I assure the minister, in the next major battle, not a single person in my Tiger Leopard team will die. My Steel Mane team guarantees the same to the minister. Rest assured, minister, in the next battle, we will certainly lead the team members to cooperate well, making every effort to minimize casualties. Starting from Luo Yuan, the first row of 10 cold resistance level members directly assured Xia Chuan, while others also made promises. They were stronger and naturally confident in ensuring no casualties in their teams. As for those captains who had not reached the cold resistance level, although they did not dare to make such guarantees, they also loudly declared their determination, promising Xia Chuan to do their utmost to reduce casualties in the next major battle. Upon hearing these guarantees, Xia Chuan's long gloomy face slightly eased, and his frown relaxed quite a bit. Good, I hope my exhortations are not in vain. I look forward to your performance next time. Remember, life is precious, and the lives of our great Xia people are even more precious. If you must die, at least die with dignity. Dying on such a battlefield is not only meaningless but also worthless. If the cost of conquering and expanding territory is your lives, then I would rather not have such blood-stained land, nor would the leader value it. Understood. Life is precious, and the lives of our great Xia people are even more precious. Even in death, it should be with dignity. If the price of conquering and expanding is life, then I'd rather not have it. Xia Chuan's words reignited the morale of the crowd that had just been subdued, causing everyone's breathing to become heavy. They slightly raised their heads, and all eyes were fixed on Xia Chuan. Do you understand? Xia Chuan asked again in a deep voice. Whether it was Luo Yuan, Zhao Long, and the other 10 cold resistance level members, or the 20 captains behind them and the ordinary hunting team members, all raised their heads excitedly and answered in unison. Understood. The resounding answer from over 1,000 people shook the heavens and the earth, causing Wushwang, whether prisoners or ordinary people, to slightly lower their heads, their submissive demeanor becoming even more respectful. Not far away, Peng Bo, who had already killed Duan Pingyu for a while, witnessed the scene comprehensively. While moved, his feelings were also complex. As a leader of a giant camp himself, if battles could achieve such a casualty rate, he could probably laugh in his sleep. However, Xia Chuan's recent admonishment was clearly sincere, and the shame on the faces of these great Xia people was not fake, meaning that, in the eyes of great Xia, such a casualty rate was truly unacceptable. This made his heart inevitably complex. The emotion stemmed entirely from Xia Chuan's recent speech. Compared to other camps, including his own Yang Lu, Great Xia's regard for its people's lives was obviously at another level. Expanding territory, how can there not be casualties? This is normal logic, but apparently not for Great Xia. This emphasis on human life was refreshing and strangely moving for Peng Bo. Great Xia really seemed somewhat different from other camps. All right, daylight is breaking. Detain all prisoners, screen all of Wushwang's population first, and then all goods and minerals. Spend the day at Wushwang, remain vigilant and prevent any mutiny. Yes, sir. With the end of the exhortation, under Xia Chuan's order, the tally and inspection of Wushwang's property quickly began. Everyone continued to busily engage in their tasks. Xia Chuan, with a smile, leisurely walked towards Peng Bo. Chief Peng, having collected some interest, feeling good. This time being able to kill Duan Pingyu, thank you, sir. Peng Bo slightly bowed in thanks, already having a rough idea of what Xia Chuan would say to him next. In the 48th year of Longyu, on April 17 at dawn, Wushwang changed hands, and Yang Lu's peculiar revival occurred simultaneously, of which Xia Hong was unaware. He was now observing the Longyu army stationed on the south side of Beiyuan camp with Hu Tong with great interest. On the snow-covered plains ahead, 2 exceptionally abrupt wooden houses appeared. The wooden houses were tower-shaped in 3 levels, the first level over 100 meters long horizontally, the second only 50 meters, and the top level just about 10 meters, with many windows obviously used for observing the surroundings. Through the windows, campfires could be seen burning inside, and vague silhouettes of heavily armed figures walking around, clearly on high alert. To the south of White Abyss is the Wushwang camp, To the southeast is the Hankyang camp through which our main army is stationed. When you look west of the wooden houses, there's a segment of long mountain range that stretches east to west, perfectly bypassing this plain. The entrances for Wushwang and Hankyang into Long Mountain are on this segment. In the large tree, accompanying Hu Tong's explanation, Xia Hong looked at the map in his hand, gently tracing the direction of the mountain range with his finger, showing a look of understanding. This segment perfectly separates Hankyang, Wushwang, and Jieyang. Thus, if these two want to reach Jieyang, they must cross this plain and pass through White Abyss. Chapter 547, Chapter 238, Decisive Victory Admonition, Hu Tong's Plan Part 4. Hu Tong, who had remained at the same rank as Xia Hong, immediately nodded upon hearing this. To the north of Wushwang and Hankyang are Jieyang, but they are separated by the branch of Long Mountain. This branch is about 30 to 40 kilometers wide, and neither family has the capability to cross it, so they have to make a detour. It should be that they don't have the capability for large-scale personnel movement. Xia Hong nodded slightly, then silently corrected Hu Tong's words in his heart. Small-scale personnel crossing and large-scale troop movement are two completely different concepts. The reason why the number of people in the hunting team at Ice Abyss Camp shouldn't be too many is that once there are too many people, it will attract a large number of cold beasts. Personnel movement follows the same logic. After all, they are all in the earth-digging realm. Moving one batch after another is somewhat dangerous, while a massive movement might attract numerous cold beasts, so they have to detour. While Xia Hong grasped the terrain of the central Longyu, he also understood why Long Mountain's army chose to garrison there. The plain in front is about 5 to 6 kilometers long horizontally, with only a few large trees in the middle and no other obstructions. Garrisoned here, they have a clear view of the entire plain passage situation, and any sizable personnel movement from Wushwang, Hankyang, or White Abyss is clearly visible. Before Lord Hong arrived, I had been observing here for 3 days. I haven't figured out who's leading them, but at night they would send people out, even organizing small teams to hunt in the mountains. The total number is over 2,005. With nearly half clad in 100-forged iron armor, they are clearly Longyu army soldiers. Not only garrisoned, but they also organize people to hunt in the mountains. This clearly shows their intention to garrison here long-term. A hint of appreciation flashed in Xia Hong's eyes for Long Mountain's quick decisions. 2,500 men, with nearly half being Longyu soldiers. Placing them here can sever the connections between the north and the center. People from Wushwang and Hankyang would have no way to unite with Jieyang and White Abyss, and they have to constantly worry that the Longyu army might attack south at any moment. It seems you're in a tough spot. Hu Tong showed a troubled expression at first, but then quickly changed his expression and chuckled. It was indeed tough initially, but with Lord Hong here it's manageable. Oh, do you have a plan? Xia Hong raised his eyebrows slightly. After receiving the mission from Hu last night, he directly followed Hu Quan to the Hankyang camp. As soon as he arrived at Hankyang, Hu Tong immediately took him to see the garrisoned Long Mountain army here. Although Xia Hong's stay at the Hankyang station was very brief, he more or less perceived its situation as soon as he arrived. Hu Tong led 1,500 from Jieyang, plus over 1,000 from Hankyang itself, totaling over 2,500 in the earth-digging realm. While the total number seems comparable to Long Mountain's, if Hu Tong dared to bring his men to fight, Xia Hong would think he was insane. The strength of the Longyu army is significantly greater than that of an ordinary camp's hunting team. Although Xia Hong doesn't have a precise concept, he is assured that, given equal numbers, they would certainly result in a one-sided slaughter. Their average basic strength is at least 30,000 jin, each equipped with a strong bow with 30 shi-draw weight, coupled with 100 forged weapons and 100 forged armor. From cultivation to equipment down to personal quality, it can be said that professional armies like the Longyu Army and the Blood Guard Army can comprehensively crush an army made up of ordinary camp hunting team members. With equal numbers, there's simply no contest. Xia Hong estimated that at least a threefold, or even more, numerical advantage is necessary for both sides to possibly reach a balanced state. Even relying on his full capabilities, this holds true. In large-scale battles in the earth-digging realm, individuals like him with the strength of 21 main hairs can naturally play a significant role, but fundamentally altering the course of the battle is entirely impossible, especially against elite troops like the Longyu army. The cold resistance level is strong. His strength of 21 main hairs could easily take down a dozen people with a punch, but ultimately, he is still a mortal body. As long as one is human, one would tire and get weary. Repeated punching would result in fatigue, and even if capable, the force would gradually diminish. However, a 1,000-man army is different. Their arrows can threaten you, maneuver around you, and attack in waves, wearing you down in a revolving manner. If you do not escape in time, you ultimately become a lamb to the slaughter. This is why that night, upon seeing Hu escape into the Blood Guard army's formation, Li Tiancheng immediately gave up on killing him. This point is clear to me, and surely clear to Hu Tong as well. Hu Tong would not foolishly assume that he and his 2,500 men could defeat Long Mountain's army just by his presence. He must have a certain plan. This is why Xia Hong immediately asked if he had a plan. While Xia Hong contemplated, Hu Tong also revealed his plan. I have already sent people separately to Wushuang, Yang Lu, and Beehive to notify Wuxing, Han Jiulai, and Hu Ming, asking them to allocate forces to assemble at Wushuang first. Deducting those left to guard, the three groups should be able to draw out over 3,000 men. Adding the 2,500 from Hankyang, we total over 6,000. With so many men, even at the cost of lives, we can bury the Longyu army. Additionally, with Lord Hong's strength, we should be able to break Long Mountain's blockade soon and join the leaders over there. Upon hearing this, Xia Hong's expression showed little change. But upon hearing the line, even at the cost of lives, we can bury the Longyu, a trace of displeasure and repulsion flashed deep within his eyes. Chapter 548. Chapter 239. Changing Situation, Great Xia Special Envoy. From the sudden outburst of violence in Long Mountain a day before the alliance meeting, marking the official breakdown of the alliance, to the subsequent turbulent changes on Pinxi Plain, the series of events that took place actually only spanned 3 days. Moreover, due to the sensitive point of the alliance's breakdown, many camps lacked formal communication channels, resulting in extreme information blockage. They dared not rashly send people to each other's camps to inquire about the situation, fearing to alert the enemy or cause unnecessary misunderstandings. On such a premise, combined with the deployment of Long Mountain's large army on the snowfield between White Abyss and Wushuang on April 14th, Hu Tong's focus was almost entirely on Long Mountain for these 3 days, with no attention paid to the situation of Beehive, Wushuang, and Yang Lu in the south. Prior to the alliance meeting, Zhejiang had already stationed 3,000 people at Hankyang camp. Of these 3,000, half were led by Hu Ming to attack Beehive. The other 1,500 were led by Hu Tong to remain stationed at Hankyang, originally intended to aid either Beehive or Yang Lu should any battle turn unfavorable, allowing for rapid reinforcement. However, with the arrival of Long Mountain's army on the 14th, Hu Tong's 1,500 men, along with more than 1,000 from Hankyang, naturally became their target. In Hu Tong's view, attacking Beehive and Yang Lu inherently required no aid. With 4 cold resistance level individuals, Hu Ming, Hu Bing, Hu Ying, and Lin Yi, alongside 1,500 from the earth-digging realm, attacking a Beehive without Chen Yingyuan and with a cold resistance level internal agent Wu Tianxing, was an easy feat. At most, Yang Lu, being closer to Long Mountain, needed some attention, but Wuxing and Han Jiulai took a full 1,800 men there, so taking Yang Lu shouldn't be too much of a problem. On the 11th, Wuxing sent word that they had successfully captured Yang Lu. Upon receiving this information, Hu Tong immediately issued the order to attack Beehive to Hu Ming, and after monitoring the situation for 2 days, turned all his attention to the arrival of Long Mountain's army. Hu Tong did not expect that the arrival of Great Xia would disrupt Zhejiang's plans for all 3 factions in the southeast of Longyu. The plan to mobilize personnel for assembly at Wushuang was doomed to failure, unbeknownst to him. Hu Tong was unaware of Great Xia's presence, but others were already in the know. In the 2 wooden houses were Long Mountain's army stationed in the south of White Abyss. In the core area of the left 2-story building, Li Xuanling sat at the head position. On the left and right sides below sat 10 people each, with Li Xuanyan and Li Xuandu among them, all adorned in war armor, with solemn expressions. In the center, a person was respectfully reporting to Li Xuanling. From the shock on everyone's face in the hall, it was clear that the words spoken by this person had caused a great stir among them. Great Xia captured Wushuang in less than half an hour. How is this possible? 7 cold resistance levels, 1,500 earth-digging realm individuals, wearing pale gold 10 forged armor. Where did they come from? Great Xia, in our Pingxi Plain we haven't heard of such a camp. They. Only Li Xuanling and Li Xuandu among the entire group had a subtle glow flicker in their pupils. The others all burst out in exclamations. Some even couldn't help but stand up, full of disbelief. Li Xuanyan, however, maintained a calm expression throughout, almost as if his mind was wandering elsewhere, only showing a slight curiosity when he heard the unfamiliar camp name of Great Xia. Li Ying in the hall wasn't surprised at everyone's reaction at all. Earlier before dawn, when he saw Wushwang being defeated by Great Xia in the gaps outside the giant stone array, his shock was no less than anyone else's here. What's there to be surprised about? Doesn't this confirm Uncle's suspicion that there is an external force meddling with Pingxi Plain? Seeing the room fall into chaos, Li Xuanling spoke up directly. Everyone paused at her words, then instantly recalled what Li Tiancheng had said 3 days earlier during the meeting at Long Mountain, and their expressions immediately changed. Is the young master's meaning that Hong Xia is connected to Great Xia? Zhou Yuan's question expressed the confusion in the minds of everyone in the hall. All turned their heads to Li Xuanling, waiting for her to answer. During the meeting 3 days ago, the most significant proof Li Tiancheng cited for suspecting an external force interfering in Pingxi Plain was the abrupt appearance and the crucial timing of rescuing Hu by Hong Xia on the night of the 14th. It happened right at the critical moment when Hu was about to die. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? I'm 90% sure. 100%. Upon hearing the speculative tone in Li Xuandu's voice, Li Xuanling shook her head decisively, giving a 10 out of 10 judgment. The faces of everyone darkened upon her words. Wushwang's earth-digging realm has at least 1,300, and with Wuxiang, Wu Ying, and Duan Pingyu, 3 cold resistance levels, the total population of the camp nears 30,000. Yet, it was taken in less than half an hour. Those 1,500 from Great Xia, could they also be a trained force? It's very likely. Didn't Li Ying just mention that Great Xia has only 7 cold resistance levels? Such few wouldn't impact battles of over 1,000. To capture Wushwang in such a short time, the strength of those 1,500 must be extraordinary. The key issue is we know nothing about this Great Xia camp. Their precise location, total population, earth-digging realm count, cold resistance level count. Chapter 549, Chapter 239, Changing Situation, Great Xia Special Envoy Part 2. If those 1,500 people were all regular troops, plus 1 Hong Xia, and there are at least 7 cold resistance level experts below, the Great Xia camp seems even stronger than Zhejiang. Why panic? We know nothing for sure, don't scare yourselves. Seeing everyone below speculating wildly, Li Xuanling furrowed her brow. Her expression remained calm throughout, and after reprimanding the crowd, she turned to look at the large map of Longyu behind her and softly asked, "Is there no new information from second brother?" Since the night of the 15th, when second young master sent someone to communicate that they had taken Yu Cheng, no further news has come back. It was Li Ying in the hall who answered her. Li Ying not only had cold resistance level cultivation, but was also the deputy commander of the Longyu army, responsible for intelligence and communication during the army's march. Upon hearing Li Ying's report, everyone turned their heads to look at the large map behind Li Xuanling, focusing their gaze on the Yanglu camp not far east of Yucheng. According to Li Xuanling's plan from 3 days ago, second young master Li Xuanxiang would lead 500 Longyu troops southeast to occupy Yucheng, and then team up with Peng Bo and Chen Yingyuan to take Yanglu and finally proceed to the beehive. Second brother only took Yucheng on the night of the 15th, sent someone back to report. Today is the 17th. By the timeline, even if he was fast, he would only now be reaching Yanglu, maybe arranging camp affairs with no hands free. By evening, the messengers should arrive. As soon as Li Xuandu spoke, the others nodded slightly. Leader Peng Bo had already allied with Long Mountain. Unless there were accidents, on the night they occupied Yucheng, Li Xuanxiang could lead Peng Bo to directly receive Yanglu, perhaps already done, and the army advancing towards the beehive. This thought invigorated everyone's spirits. Third young master Li Xuandu not only brought 500 Longyu troops but also 50 fully assembled hunting teams, totaling 1,750 people, departing on the night of the 14th, taking just 2 nights to capture Changning and Songyuan. After arranging everything last night, He brought Zhou Yuan and Meng Ying directly here to provide support. Second young master has already taken Yucheng. With just a little more effort to settle Yanglu and Beehive, Long Mountain would have resolved half of the 10 camps of Longyu. Their 4,000-strong army stationed at 2 points has divided Jieyang, Dongkeng, White Abyss, Xiling, Wushuang, and Hankyang into 3 parts, without the possibility of these camps merging. Next, once the 5 occupied camps have been stabilized, they can continuously draw personnel from those areas, allowing the 6 divided camps by the Longyu army to be conquered one by one. While everyone was lost in thought, Li Xuanling's gaze suddenly returned from the map, and she gravely asked Li Ying a question. When Great Xia attacked Wushuang, how many defenders did Wushuang have? Hearing this question, Li Ying was first stunned, then recalled the scene he had seen, his expression turning grim. Seeing his reaction, the others immediately understood. Li Xuanling at the top also furrowed her brows tightly. This is not right. Great Xia swiftly taking Wushuang wasn't because they are too strong, but because there were hardly any defenders at Wushuang. The leaders of Hankyang and Wushuang never attended the alliance meeting. The 2 camps must have already joined forces, targeting either the Beehive or Yanglu. On the left, Li Chuandu stood up abruptly, speaking in shock. His words instantly sobered everyone present. Yanglu, Wuxing, and Han Jiulai must have led men to take Yanglu. Li Xuanling's decisive words immediately captured everyone's attention. No surprise, either second brother is tied up at the Yanglu base or has already taken Yanglu, hence no time to send news back. Why not attack the Beehive? Hearing Zhou Yuan's inquiry, Li Xuanling immediately responded with a counter-question. Then where do you think Great Xia came from? Everyone was suddenly startled, looking up at the map of Longyu above. The giant camps here in Longyu Long Mountain is aware they couldn't have appeared out of thin air. Great Xia must not be a local camp. West of Pingxi Plain is Long Mountain, north is Mang Mountain, and past the easternmost Hankyang is Stone Wall. For outside forces to enter, the only passage is through the southeast. I remember south of the Beehive, there used to be a camp called Mirror Immortal. There was a Mirror Immortal camp. I recall the leader was He Yuanhun, very powerful. 8 years ago, Chen Yingyuan sought alliance aid, saying Mirror Immortal intended to annex Beehive, and we were the ones who sent people to deter that He Yuanhun. As Li Chuandu spoke, everyone's memories instantly cleared up. Indeed, there was such a camp 8 years ago. So this Mirror Immortal camp is somehow connected to Great Xia as well. Unclear, but it can be roughly determined that Great Xia came from the direction of the Mirror Immortal camp. Someone should be sent to specifically investigate this Great Xia. So does this mean Great Xia not only took Wushuang, but likely also the Beehive, instantly swallowing 2 of our Longyu camps? Upon hearing Zhou Yuan's words, the faces of everyone in the hall immediately became extremely serious. And Li Xuanling, who raised this hypothesis, looked the most downcast. Great Xia must be well informed about the current situation in Longyu. We are in the dark while they are in the light. They have accurately seized the timing of Longyu's internal strife to extend their reach into Pingxi Plain. Chapter 550, Chapter 239, Shifting Situation, Great Xia Special Envoy Part 3. Bang! Li Xuanling knocked on the table, and a hint of anger appeared on her exquisite face. External forces meddling in Pingxi Plain had always been what Long Mountain most guarded against. Ever since her father Li Tianhua led Long Mountain to rise powerfully, in Li Xuanling's view, the entire Longyu was already in their pocket. Even with someone like Marquis Zhejiang Hu, it doesn't change anything. Yet now, an external force has actually made its way in. We can't wait until nightfall to send spies. Li Ying, Zhou Yuan, Meng Ying, Xu Emping, the 4 of you set out immediately. Go and investigate the situations of Wushuang, Yanglu, Beehive, and Hankyang. Find out what the current status of these 4 families is and report back immediately with any news. Be extra cautious while outside. Yes, young master. The 4 below responded to the order, stood up promptly, answered with a bow, and swiftly headed towards the exit. Li Xuanling continued to turn her attention to the map behind, her mind deep in concentration. Information is extremely important. Li Xuanling was well aware of this fact, but the issue was that everything was happening too quickly. Over 4,000 troops departed from Long Mountain on the evening of the 14th, half stationed to the northwest of White Abyss to cut off the communication route between White Abyss and Xiling. The other half was personally led by her in a 2-night forced march to White Abyss's southern region, now stationed here to prevent the forces of Wushwang and Hankyang from joining with the troops of Xia Hong at White Abyss. So she brought the army of Long Mountain here just last night. The timeline was too quick. She hadn't even had time to send out spies. If she hadn't noticed Wushwang's proximity and dispatched Li Ying to investigate at dawn, they might not have known until now that Wushwang had been occupied by Great Xia. No, they aren't even aware of Great Xia's presence till now. Wushwang, Hankyang, Yanglu, Beehive, these 4 families must have undergone unforeseen upheavals. We need only wait for Li Ying and her companions' reports next. After pondering for a moment, Li Xuanling turned to Li Xuandu and inquired softly, "Is Hu already over at White Abyss?" Upon hearing this, Li Xuandu's eyes flickered slightly and he nodded lightly. "He's already there. 1,000 Blood Guard troops are stationed at White Abyss's outpost, and Uncle Qing has been supervising. The forces from Xiling and White Abyss haven't moved much. Hu seems unwilling to fight." "Huh?" Li Xuanling chuckled softly, saying, "It's not unwillingness, it's fear. Those 1,000 Blood Guard troops are his greatest asset in Zhejiang. Having lost over 100 people 3 days ago, he must be grieving, not daring to challenge us further." At this she paused slightly before continuing. "He's well aware that Zhejiang's only chance of victory is to gather the forces of Wushwang, Hankyang, Xiling, White Abyss, and Dongkeng, perhaps even more camps, to deplete our Longyu troops. So there are bound to be deployments in the south, likely arriving in the next few days. Be vigilant of the surroundings. There's also a contingent of 1,000 Blood Guard troops on Zhejiang's side, so Hu is fully aware of the strength of Longyu's forces. Without absolute numerical superiority, defeating Long Mountain is utterly impossible. Zhejiang alone cannot muster enough earth-digging realm warriors. Thus, the only way to battle Long Mountain effectively is by consolidating earth-digging realm warriors from other camps and gathering them together. This is why Li Xuanling immediately mobilized Longyu troops to cut off Zhejiang's communication passages with the other camps. From peak combat power to regular divisions to the quantity of ordinary earth-digging realm warriors, Zhejiang has no advantage over us. Even if he does gather personnel from the 5 camps in Longyu, his chance of success is at most 30%. The only variable now is this sudden appearance of Special Envoy Q Peng from Great Xia requests an audience with the esteemed individuals of Long Mountain. A cheerful voice suddenly rang out from outside the wooden house, not only interrupting Li Xuanling's words, but also causing the remaining 7 inside the house to change expressions instantly and look toward the entrance. "People from Great Xia. Special Envoy requesting an audience. What is the meaning of this?" The 7 people inside exchanged glances before all directing their gaze toward Li Xuanling. "Let him in then, let's hear what he has to say." Compared to the others, Li Xuanling appeared much more composed. She lightly waved her hand to signal the last person below, who immediately nodded, stood up, and proceeded to exit the room. Though the wooden house was illuminated by fire, it was daylight, preventing anyone from venturing out because of Earth-Digging Realms restrictions. Thus, only cold resistance-level individuals could be sent. Similarly, since the visitor could come during broad daylight, he must also be of cold resistance level, so sending a person of the same level was not considered disrespectful. The person who went out quickly returned, leading a handsome black-clad man with a slender long knife, slowly entering. Upon seeing the slender long knife, Li Xuanling, along with 3 others below, had their gazes slightly tense, and their expressions subtly changed. "So young." This was everyone's first reaction upon seeing the face of the black-clad man. Cold resistance level is not common. Among the 12 giant camps of Longyu, those with maximum strength reaching or even exceeding 30,000 pounds might be numerous, but those truly breaking through to cold resistance level do not exceed 100. And among these cold resistance level individuals, the majority are over 40 years old. For example, of the 8 cold resistance level individuals present in Long Mountain, 5 are over 40, while among the remaining 3, Li Xuandu and Li Xuanyan are 32 and 37, respectively. Chapter 551, Chapter 239, Shifting Situation, Great Xia Special Envoy, Part 4. Is there a young cold resistance level? Of course there is. Li Xuanling is one. Li Tianhua has 4 children. The youngest, Li Xuanling, is only 22, making him the youngest known cold resistance level on the Longyu land. The issue is that in the entirety of Longyu, there's only one Li Xuanling. And at this moment, standing before them is this young man. Judging by appearance, he's also in his early 20s. At the very least, he wouldn't be over 25. He must be a child of some big figure from Great Xia. Could he be the leader's son? Li Xuandu exchanged subtle glances with a few people beside him, his expression slightly cold. The surrounding people clearly understood his thoughts, and the gaze directed at the young man in black also became colder. May I ask, are you the young lord of Long Mountain, Li Xuanling in person? Qiu Peng didn't know that the people inside the room had misunderstood his identity, ready to make a move against him, and he just followed the description provided by Chen Yingyuan, guessing out the identity of the beautiful woman at the head, and immediately gave a slight bow and spoke. Indeed, Great Xia is thoroughly informed about the situation in Longyu. Seeing that the other party could recognize his identity at a glance, Li Xuanling's gaze slightly hardened, first staring at Qiu Peng for a while, then laughingly said, "Great Xia Special Envoy, this is the first time I've heard such a title." Seeing that Qiu Peng only possessed mediocre abilities, Li Xuanling was not polite, made a jest about the title Special Envoy, then suddenly deepened his voice. "Does Special Envoy Qiu know that unlawfully intruding upon the crucial grounds of our Longyu army camp can cost your life?" Upon hearing, Qiu Peng raised his head and stared straight at Li Xuanling, without the slightest attempt to hide the provocation in his eyes. "Qiu Peng's life isn't worth much. Young lord is free to take it, but before doing so, my master has some words to inform the people of Long Mountain." "Is this just a show of force? Trying to scare me?" There wasn't the slightest hint of fear on Qiu Peng's face. He paused for a moment, coldly laughed in his heart before loudly saying, "Great Xia is not interested in Longyu land, nor does it wish to get involved in the current disputes in Longyu. The reason for deploying troops to Beehive and Wushuang this time is because the leaders of the two houses actively sought aid. Therefore, if there is any offense, I hope the people of Long Mountain will forgive. Both Wushuang and Beehive have already formed alliances with our Great Xia, and henceforth the three will be led by Great Xia. I hope the people of Long Mountain are aware of this." After these words, Li Xuanling, including the 7 others present, had their expressions turned exceedingly grim, their gazes towards Qiu Peng noticeably carrying more murderous intent. First of all, Qiu Peng's words already showed that Great Xia indeed occupied Beehive. Secondly, although they were unclear of the situation with Beehive, just minutes ago, Li Ying was standing in the same place as Qiu Peng, telling them in person how Great Xia captured Wushuang. And now Qiu Peng says Wushuang actively sought aid, and that's why Great Xia deployed troops. This is just brazenly lying with open eyes. Not only did they come flauntingly to declare sovereignty, but also treated them like fools. As for Qiu Peng's claim that Great Xia is not interested in Longyu land, and doesn't wish to involve itself in the current disputes of Longyu, they completely disregarded it. Only a fool would believe such words. After all, who gave this person such audacity to dare to boldly come before them and say these things? Li Xuandu, along with the other 6 cold resistance level, all stood up from their chairs, the murderous intent in their eyes rising to an extreme, with even 2 of the more rash ones starting to walk towards Qiu Peng. Clearly, they were planning to take action. Qiu Peng's words did seem to hint at courting death. Li Xuanling had not spoken from start to finish, as though he hadn't noticed the actions of the other 7, only his gaze remained calmly fixed on Qiu Peng. "I forgot to tell everyone that my master sent 2 special envoys this time. I am only one of them. Judging by the time, the other should be arriving at Ping Valley shortly. Before you act, you should think it through." Step. Qiu Peng's words caused the killing intent on the faces of Li Xuandu and the 7 others to instantly freeze. Li Xuanling's exquisitely calm face finally showed a slight ripple. Chapter 552, Chapter 240, An Offer You Can't Refuse, Narrow Escape. What kind of place is Ping Valley? It's the lair of the Zhejiang camp. This place name within Longyu, besides the cold resistance level of the 12 camps, very few others know about it, but Qiu Peng does. This undoubtedly proves once again that the Great Xia's understanding of Longyu is far more than they imagined. Great Xia has dispatched 2 special envoys. One is Qiu Peng to find them, and the other went to Ping Valley. What else would one go to Ping Valley for? Of course to seek the Zhejiang camp. Dare to kill him, Great Xia would inevitably stand with Zhejiang and oppose Long Mountain. The subtext in Qiu Peng's words, how could the 8 people present not hear it? If it were just a single camp, with the current strength that the Great Xia has shown, to be honest, it's not enough to make Long Mountain fear. But the problem is, Qiu Peng just said that the Beehive and Wushuang have both formed alliances with Great Xia, and both houses will henceforth act under the lead of Great Xia. This means that Great Xia can already represent 3 giant camps. All 3 siding with Hu, then Long Mountain, that's a lot of trouble. So the 7 who were about to make a move on Qiu Peng just now immediately halted. Great Xia comes from afar as a guest. What are you all doing? Sit down. Fortunately, Li Xuanling at the top gave them a step down in time. The 7 either snorted coldly or wore reluctant expressions, but all sat back down. So you and Great Xia intend to watch the tigers fight from a distance. Li Xuanling's direct hit on the issue caused a slight change in Qiu Peng's expression. Great Xia sent 2 special envoys, one to Long Mountain and the other to Zhejiang. The intention of watching the tigers fight from a distance was very obvious. It's not surprising that Li Xuanling could see this. The real reason for Qiu Peng's expression change was the strong threat in Li Xuanling's tone when he said this, which immediately reminded him of his conversation with Xia Chuan before setting off from Wushuang. They, sir, actively looking for someone from Long Mountain at this time, and saying that we won't intervene in the Longyu dispute, doesn't it somewhat give us away? Of course, sending you and Zhao Long, one to Long Mountain, one to Zhejiang, even a fool could see our intention of watching the tigers fight from a distance. No one would believe it. Then what is the meaning of Zhao Long's and my mission to these 2 houses? To ease their minds, at least let them know we haven't partnered with the other house. We now hold Wushuang and Beehive, which means we have the power to influence the current balance in Longyu. So in this situation, what will Long Mountain and Zhejiang's attitude be towards us? To win us over, if not, they will at least appease, not antagonize us. Most likely, but not necessarily. Longyu has a very strong exclusionist nature, and Great Xia, as an external force, can easily become the target of everyone. Not to mention that we rapidly took over the Beehive and Wushuang. Any smart person in Long Mountain and Zhejiang, upon realizing the situation, will inevitably be extremely wary of us. If both houses share the same attitude, then the unlucky ones would be us instead. It's not so easy to be the fisherman, considering the current situation in Longyu. As an external force, if Great Xia causes both houses to be wary simultaneously, the greater possibility is that both houses would first strike at Great Xia. Qiu Peng undoubtedly understands such a simple truth. So his expression also changed. Then after pondering for a moment, he vaguely speculated on Xia Chuan's true intention of sending him and Zhao Long to these 2 houses. Sir's intention is to have Zhao Long and me to probe, to test Zhejiang and Long Mountain's attitude towards Great Xia. If both are wary, then we must change strategy to the greatest extent, to prevent Great Xia from becoming the common target of both houses. Just you, Zhao Long is different. I initially thought Zhejiang had the upper hand in Longyu. However, from the fact that Long Mountain's army has been stationed here since last night and Zhejiang's camps haven't made any moves, this thought is clearly wrong. Since Zhejiang is at a disadvantage, our 3 houses are his lifeline, so he must rely on them and will naturally try to rope them in. Therefore, Zhao Long's mission will inevitably be welcomed as an honored guest by Zhejiang, much easier than yours. With Peng Bo and Chen Yingyuan present and personally involved, Xia Chuan already had a fairly clear grasp of the situation in Longyu, which is the main basis for his subsequent step-by-step calculations. Taking a step back, Zhejiang is in the north, far away from us. Even if he temporarily fears Great Xia, he poses no threat to us, but the Long Mountain army stationed north of Wushuang is different. So your primary task in this mission is to assess the strength of that army, and then to probe Long Mountain's attitude. Based on their strength and attitude, then make. Qiu Peng, as the director of the camp's supply department, one of the 6 ministries of Great Xia, is skilled not only in hunting and cultivation. Managing the vast resources of the camp has long honed an exceedingly clear mind in him. His long-term collaboration with Xia Chuan also fostered sufficient tacit understanding, allowing him to grasp Xia Chuan's words with precision. That's why the important task of serving as an envoy to Long Mountain was entrusted to him by Xia Chuan. Qiu Peng is also at the cold resistance level. As he just approached the wooden house, He had already sensed the general strength of over 2,000 people inside. Based on Li Xuanling's threatening tone, he quickly reached a decision in his mind. "Little sir, you jest. Watching the tigers fight from afar takes strength. We in Great Xia only wish to tend to our own small plot of land and live our days, never daring to have such thoughts. I hope Long Mountain will generously spare us. My master promises, as long as Great Xia is not dragged into this dispute." Chapter 553. Chapter 240. An Offer You Can't Refuse, Narrow Escape Part 2. Qiu Peng paused here, held up 3 fingers and continued. "Firstly, Great Xia, Beehive, and Wushwang are willing to respect Long Mountain as the ruler of Longyu, as before. The annual tribute from the 3 families will be paid as usual. Secondly, the Great Xia families will not cooperate with Zhejiang in any form. Lastly, Great Xia is willing to designate the entire Wushwang realm as a neutral zone, to be co-managed with Long Mountain, allowing Long Mountain personnel to travel freely in the future. If Long Mountain agrees to these 3 terms, Great Xia can execute them immediately." As Qiu Peng stated the 3 conditions, the expressions of Li Xuanling and the 7 people below changed instantly, especially the last remark that Great Xia would immediately execute the conditions once Long Mountain agreed, which notably stirred everyone's reactions. Perhaps sensing the tension wasn't sufficient, Qiu Peng added, "I have some information about Hankyang Camp, which should greatly aid Long Mountain. As a gesture of goodwill from Great Xia, we are giving it directly to Long Mountain." After a pause, Qiu Peng continued. On April 11, Wushwang and Hankyang joined forces to destroy Yanglu Camp. Wushwang sent 800 people, Hankyang 1,000. Wu Xing, Wu Ying, Han Jiulai, and Wu Lin are currently stationed at Yangyuan Peak. Bang! Li Xuandu stood up immediately, and the reactions of the other 6 were just as intense. All 7 turned their heads to look at their superior, only to find Li Xuanling's gaze fixed steadily on Qiu Peng, clearly deep in thought. While Qiu Peng was on his diplomatic mission to Long Mountain's camp, at the Wushwang Giant Stone Camp. After arranging the migration plan for the Wushwang personnel, Xia Chuan was with Luo Yuan and a group of cold resistance-level individuals, observing the surroundings of Wushwang while engaging in light conversation. The smile on his face made it clear that he was in good spirits at the moment. "Master, respecting Long Mountain as the ruler of Longyu and continuing the annual tribute, promising not to cooperate with Zhejiang in any form to oppose Long Mountain. These 2 conditions are indeed good, but Long Mountain isn't foolish. Why would they trust Great Xia?" Recalling the words Xia Chuan had said to Qiu Peng before the mission, Luo Yuan finally couldn't help but ask, "Did I ever say they should trust us?" Xia Chuan's rhetorical question left everyone baffled. Among the 8 people beside Luo Yuan, only Peng Bo's expression became slightly thoughtful, clearly guessing Xia Chuan's intent. Showing weakness. These 3 conditions are all about showing weakness to Long Mountain. Xia Chuan slightly turned his head to see that it was Hong Guang who spoke, and his eyes immediately showed a touch of appreciation as he nodded slightly. Some people seemed to have faintly understood something, showing a look of sudden realization, but more of them still looked at Xia Chuan with bewilderment, clearly waiting for his explanation. "What do you think Long Mountain would feel about Great Xia after hearing these 3 conditions, especially the last one where I had Qiu Peng give them the information about Hankyang Camp for free? How would they feel after hearing it?" The 3 conditions were: continuing to respect Long Mountain as the ruler of Longyu with uninterrupted annual tribute, a promise not to cooperate with Zhejiang, and designating Wushwang as a neutral area for joint management with Long Mountain. This appeared to be offering things humbly, and the offerings weren't insignificant. Combining it with the last piece of information, revealing how Wushwang and Hankyang each sent a certain number of people to attack Yanglu, was informing Long Mountain that Hankyang currently had few guards. On the other hand, it also made clear to Long Mountain that Great Xia was able to capture Wushwang simply because there were few people left at home. How would Long Mountain feel hearing this? Of course, they would think Great Xia is very weak, and the only reason they conquered the Beehive and Wushwang was due to a combination of luck and coincidences. Even with 3 families, they are still afraid of Long Mountain, which is why they came up with these 3 conditions. A Great Xia willing to sacrifice so much for Long Mountain and actively showing weakness is not something Long Mountain would exert great effort on, at least not at this stage. Their main enemy has always been Hu Hu. Moreover, after conceding some rights of Wushwang, there's nothing left for Long Mountain to act upon. Forcing confrontation against us would only push us to Hu's side. As long as the person in charge on their end isn't foolish, they won't refuse. Master, is Wushwang really that important? Zhao Hu turned to look at the giant stone array wall of Wushwang, his expression puzzled. Among the three conditions just mentioned, he always thought the one about Wushwang was the least important, but now it seemed from Xia Chuan's words that it was actually the most crucial. It's certainly important. Yu Cheng has already been captured by Li Xuanxiang. If nothing unexpected happens, they might currently be attacking Yanglu or have already taken it down. When people from these two camps want to head north and join Long Mountain's army, passing through the Wushwang realm is the fastest and most convenient. As Yu Yuan finished speaking, Zhao Hu immediately picked up a broken twig and drew a few lines in the snow, and upon seeing them, everyone suddenly understood. Wushwang is centrally located in Longyu, with a mountain range obstructing direct passage to Zhejiang in the north. However, the northwest part borders White Abyss, where Long Mountain's army is currently stationed. Directly south is Yanglu, southwest is Yucheng, directly west is first Song Yuan, then Changning, and the east is Hanqiang. In other words, not only Yucheng, Yanglu, but even if large forces from Song Yuan and Changning were dispatched here, traveling through Wushwang would still be the fastest and most convenient route. And that's not all. Haven't any of you looked carefully at the Longyu map? Seeing that the group seemed not truly to realize the strategic importance of Wushwang's location, Peng Bo couldn't help but interject. Chapter 554, Chapter 240, An Offer You Can't Refuse, Narrow Escape Part 3. Upon hearing his inquiry, everyone looked a bit puzzled. Peng Bo gently shook his head, then saw Xia Chuan smiling and nodding at him, indicating for him to proceed. He immediately took the branch from Zhao Hu's hand, adding to the simple map he had just drawn. He directly drew a simple outline of a mountain range on the far left, immediately recognizable as Long Mountain, then divided the entire Longyu into three parts: north, central, and south. Longyu covers more than 13,000 square kilometers in total, divided into three main areas. In the north there are only two places, the largest Zhejiang and Dongkeng to the northeast. The central region is larger, with Changning on the far west side. Changning is characterized by a long and narrow territory north to south, with Xiling to its northeast, Biwan directly east, Song Yuan to the southeast, and where we are now, Wushwang. On the far east is Hanqiang Camp. The south is relatively simple from west to east. It consists of Yucheng, Yanglu, and Beehive. As Peng Bo drew and spoke, everyone watched the ground as he continued to complete the map of Longyu, and their eyes slowly transformed. Especially at the end, Peng Bo pointed to the area where Wushwang was located with the branch. Now understood. There was no need to answer Peng Bo's question. The simplified map on the ground could not have been clearer. Remarkably, the territory of the Wushwang camp was located right in the center of Longyu. From Wushwang, it is the fastest and most convenient to travel to any camp in Longyu. That's why the leader designated Wushwang as a neutral area, and Long Mountain is sure to be tempted, especially at this critical juncture. It was only at this moment that everyone fully understood the essence of the three promises Xia Chuan made to Long Mountain. However, everyone quickly showed a startled expression, and all turned their gaze toward Peng Bo. Leader, did they mishear Peng Bo's address to Xia Chuan just now? Xia Chuan was initially taken aback, then turned expectantly toward Peng Bo. Peng Bo seemed to have finally figured something out, bowed with clasped hands to Xia Chuan, then bent down and said solemnly, Peng Bo, willing to serve the great Xia from now on. Good, good, good. Xia Chuan repeated the word good 3 times. He had already approached Peng Bo for recruitment last night after taking down Wushwang, but Peng Bo had not agreed then. At this moment, he didn't understand why Peng Bo had changed his mind, but was filled with excitement and joy. An expert of cold resistance level late stage with the power of EIGHT Chinese letter, and the former leader of a major camp, Peng Bo's joining was of absolute significance to the great Xia. Moreover, Peng Bo was different from Chen Yingyuan, Chen Yingba, and Wu Tianxing. Those three had family members under control, so they were coerced into joining the great Xia. Whereas Peng Bo, firstly, great Xia had no enmity with Yang Lu, and secondly, Yuan Cheng and others had done him a favor, so his joining was basically pure. And Peng Bo's joining would also impact Yang Lu later, which was what Xia Chuan valued the most. Peng Bo, since we are in wartime now, I will not immediately assign you a position. It will be arranged once the matters in Longyu are settled, and we return to Xia City. How about it? Having chosen to join the Great Xia, Peng Bo naturally had no objections and nodded with a bow. Luo Yuan, Zhao Hu, and the other 8 people were equally excited, clearly understanding the significance of Peng Bo's joining. The 48th year of Longyu, April 17, daytime. In the snowfield 3 to 4 kilometers east of Yanglu, near a large tree with a diameter of 7 to 8 meters, the ground was covered with remains and severed limbs. A rough glance estimated at least 1,000 people. Upon closer inspection, there were differences among these bodies. Most of the bodies near the inner circle of the tree were dismembered corpses, bearing marks of blades and swords, clearly indicating they were killed by human hands. The outer circle consisted mainly of intact bodies. Judging from their frozen limbs, it could be concluded that they were frozen to death by the cold air entering their bodies during the daylight hours. The mixture of blood and snow on the ground in the inner circle had long dried into an inky color, permeating the air with a nauseating stench. Cough, cough, and cough, cough. A sudden bout of intense coughing erupted from among the pile of corpses in the inner circle. Scritchy. 2 blood-stained hands suddenly emerged from beneath a corpse. Yuan Cheng abruptly raised himself halfway from the pile of bodies, looking very frightened. He took several deep breaths, then turned to look around. Upon seeing nothing but bodies around him, the panic on his face slightly diminished. However, his pupils still showed strong fear and shock. "How are you all doing?" Suddenly, Yuan Cheng thought of something and quickly turned to shout towards the large tree behind him. Seeing no response, he instantly appeared frantic and got up, walking towards the tree while continuing to shout. "Are you all dead? Is anyone still alive?" "Leader, we are still alive." Finally, after Yuan Cheng shouted more than a dozen times, a weak voice replied from inside the tree. Hearing the voice, Yuan Cheng's face broke into a broad smile, and he walked directly to the tree, circled around it, and finally found a small opening covered with wooden planks on the south side. "Leader, you are alive, that's great." The opening was opened from the inside, and Yuan Cheng stumbled in. Inside the large tree, with a diameter of 7 to 8 meters, had been hollowed out by someone. The space was crammed with 70 or 80 people. Many were standing against the edge stacked together, while some injured ones lay in the middle. The already small space was so packed that even breathing was difficult. Even though he couldn't move after getting inside, seeing so many people still alive inside the tree, Yuan Cheng's expression relaxed considerably. Chapter 555, Chapter 240, An Irresistible Offer, A Narrow Escape Part 4. Suddenly thinking of something, Yuan Cheng immediately raised his head to ask, "Where's Yuan Dao? How is he?" The person at the cave entrance immediately turned his head and pointed to the ground behind him, saying, "Lord Yuan is fine, but he's been in a comatose state this entire time and hasn't woken up." Following the direction of his finger, Yuan Cheng looked and saw Yuan Dao lying on the ground with his eyes closed, and his expression finally relaxed completely. "Who?" He took a deep breath and looked up to see the terrified expressions on the faces of the great Xia people inside the tree hole, and his heart was filled with extreme guilt, unable to speak for a long time. "Wrong. Last night at Yongyuan Peak, that momentary lapse of kindness at the end caused a big mistake. In the last 10 minutes before dawn, he took over 100 people from Great Xia, carrying the unconscious Yuan Dao, and withdrew from the outskirts of Yongyuan Peak. Originally, according to the plan, in the final moments they would find a big tree, then 100 people would work together to make a simple tree hole, survive the 4 hours of daylight, and return to the beehive at night. It would basically be fine. But unexpectedly, something terrifying happened. Many of the people they had saved from Yongyuan Peak followed behind them, and those people were already covered with dewdrops, so how could Yuan Cheng possibly let them get close? He initially gave stern warnings, then erupted into violence to intimidate. At first it worked, frightening those people. But gradually, things started to go wrong. Those people seemed to suddenly become fearless of death. They rushed towards Yuan Cheng one after another. There were thousands of them, and among them some were from the earth-digging realm. No matter how strong Yuan Cheng was, he couldn't possibly kill them all. Moreover, dawn was getting closer, and if the over 100 people from Great Xia didn't prepare the tree hole before dawn, they would all surely die. At that time, Yuan Cheng already regretted his softness, but regret was useless. He could only grit his teeth and endure, relying on a giant axe to hold his ground for the last few minutes, letting the people from Great Xia all hide in the tree hole. He had no idea how many people he had killed. He only knew that when the sun rose, those who had besieged him screamed horribly and many ran away. Before he lost his strength, he hid himself under the bodies. "Lord, your body." Yuan Cheng, lost in thought, was suddenly awakened by the person in front of him. Seeing his fearful expression and pointing at his own body, Yuan Cheng quickly lowered his head to look. At a glance, his body also stiffened. Last night, being besieged by so many people, he had numerous injuries. On a rough inspection, there were at least 40 or 50 wounds on his arms, chest, abdomen, and both thighs. He should have taken a blood sore pill before passing out, so the wounds on his body showed preliminary signs of healing. What made his body stiffen was not these wounds that were about to heal, but the fact that near these wounds there were clusters of white dewdrops. Moreover, these dewdrops seemed to have undergone some new changes. The dewdrops that grew on people at Yangyuan Peak last night were as large as thumbnail, and they were transparent. Whereas now, the dewdrops near his wounds were at most 1/5 of last night's size, and they even had a milky white color, thicker than before. As Yuan Cheng's expression shook, the person who had been pointing at him also lowered his head to inspect his own body. Seeing this, his expression instantly froze. "Lord, I have them on me too." Not only him, the other people inside the tree hole began self-screening. "I've got them too." "Me too, near the wounds." "I don't have any wounds, but I have them too, albeit not many." "Lord Yuan Dao has them on him too." Calm down, don't panic. Do any of you still have solidified fire oil?" No need for everyone to respond. Yuan Cheng realized as soon as he asked. It was a pointless question. During the siege by those people last night, dewdrops kept appearing on his body, and the solidified fire oil that everyone had was basically all used on him alone. "I have to hurry back to the beehive. Wait here for me. I'll bring back the solidified fire oil quickly. Don't run around." "Lord, let's wait until nightfall. Your wounds aren't healed." "Yes, now it's daylight. It's not safe outside either." Seeing Yuan Cheng dragging his wounded body as he rushed out, everyone in the tree hole immediately voiced their dissuasion. But Yuan Cheng didn't pay any attention, merely waved at them and staggered out of the tree hole, heading towards the beehive on the east side. Chapter 556, Chapter 241, Message, Rebellion, and the Strange Wuxia. Those people who ran away from Yangyuan Peak definitely have issues. The way this white dew plague spreads is extremely rapid, contact, and even air have a high probability of transmission, which means as long as you get close, you'll catch it. That mysterious creature most likely controls people through these dewdrops. Last night, there were at least 4,000 or 5,000 people attacking me, but now only about 1,000 are awake on the ground, meaning there's still a large number out there. No, I can't just go back to the beehive like this. If I bring the plague back, I'll harm others. Need to think of a way, best not to make contact. Yuan Cheng dragged his injured body, walking towards the beehive area while constantly thinking of countermeasures in his mind. What happened at Yanglu, the rest of the camps in Longyu are still unaware. Once this white dew plague spreads, it will definitely be a major disaster. Not even mentioning the impact of the plague, the mysterious creature behind this plague, he hasn't seen the true form, which shows the strength and depth of its concealment. If it keeps killing people through the plague, who knows what level it will evolve to? Can the Great Xia, separated by just a forest from Longyu, remain untouched? This is the main reason he's eager to return to the beehive. Yuan Cheng is certainly afraid of death, but in his heart, the survival of Great Xia is more important than his own life. Absolutely no contact, and must communicate from a distance as much as possible. The most important is to pass this information to the higher-ups. Yuan Cheng gritted his teeth and quickened his pace. He estimated he was in the beehive territory when he slightly slowed down to rest momentarily. As soon as his pace slowed, Yuan Cheng stopped after just a couple of steps. "What's going on?" Yuan Cheng opened his clothes and looked towards the wound. His expression suddenly froze. The milky white dewdrops near the wound had started to turn red, the same as the situation at Yangyuan Peak last night, seemingly in the heating process. But strangely, this heating process is exceptionally slow, completely unlike last night's rapid heating and explosion at Yangyuan Peak, which emitted blue flames. Additionally, I have been walking under the sunlight for more than 2 hours continuously, which normally I couldn't do under daylight for so long. Cold resistance level only qualifies for activity during the day, not being able to stay under sunlight all day. Yuan Cheng had tested when he broke through to cold resistance level. He could last 2 hours at most under the sun, that too in a normal bodily state. This situation is obviously abnormal now. Yuan Cheng glanced up at the sunlight, then felt the white dewdrops near the wound, his expression thoughtful. The soaring temperature of these white dewdrops seems to be counteracted by the cold light. My skin membrane strength can withstand the high temperature of the dewdrops, while also repelling the coldness in the sunlight. The two are balanced on my skin membrane, temporarily causing no effect. Recalling the frozen corpses by cold light around the tree trunk upon awakening, Yuan Cheng's gaze slightly focused, steadily confirming his guess. Most people who escaped from Yangyuan Peak are ordinary people. They can't withstand the high temperature of the dewdrops, nor face the cold light, hence they escaped fully before dawn. Right? Compare the warming dewdrops to yang. Then the cold light of daytime sun is yin. Cold resistance level can withstand both, creating a temporary balance within the body, so he could walk this long without issue. Meaning these dewdrops also fear cold, thus deducing that the white dew goo at Yangyuan Peak, temporarily like humans, also fears the day. Thinking of Yuan Dao and the others waiting for rescue inside the tree hole, Yuan Cheng continued his journey, constantly deriving more information about the white dew goo. As the Great Xia gradually expanded and regulations became more complete, Yuan Cheng's reckless and rugged nature had also restrained a lot. Especially after the reform of the 6 ministries, being appointed by Xia Chuan as the director of the garrison department, his growth was advancing rapidly. The strength of mysterious creatures is only one aspect. More importantly, it's reflected in their numerous mysterious and unpredictable methods. So, intelligence and information are the most crucial tools to deal with them. Matters concerning the white dew goo haven't spread within Longyu yet. Among those who have had indirect contact are only himself and Yuan Dao's group, making his derived primary information crucial. With a quickened pace, Yuan Cheng finally arrived at the outskirts of the beehive before dark. After Great Xia captured the beehive, no changes were made to the station. Going below still requires finding the boulder entrance. Fortunately, it's daylight, and Yuan Cheng is familiar with the beehive station location, quickly locating it. Yuan Cheng didn't approach the boulder, covering himself comprehensively with clothes exposing only his face, then picking up some stones from the ground, tossing them 5 or 6 meters away, creating noise before speaking loudly. Rain in all directions, but none like Redwood Ridge's rain. Within 4 or 5 breaths, a reply sounded from beneath the boulder. Rain at Dragon Gate Mountain, and the snow tiger descends from the mountain. The secret phrase of Great Xia has remained unchanged. Originally genuinely used to guard against mysterious creatures, now it serves primarily as an initial screening tool, allowing guards to identify someone from Great Xia. Of course, as director of the garrison department, one of the high-ranking officials, almost no one in Great Xia doesn't recognize Yuan Cheng, especially those coming to Longyu this time are earth-digging realm from the hunting department, making Yuan Cheng even more familiar. Chapter 557, Chapter 241, Message, Rebellion and the Strange Wuxing, Part 2. A crack opened at the base of the giant stone, revealing a pair of eyes. Despite the 5 or 6 meters of distance, the person inside recognized Yuan Cheng at a glance. Director Yuan is back. The guard's voice was filled with joy as he immediately opened the crack in the giant stone, clearly preparing to welcome Yuan Cheng back. No need to open the crack, I can't come in. Quickly notify Mengyi to come out. Also, do you have any solidified fire oil? If you do, toss it to me. If not, hurry and get some for me. Yuan Cheng was aware of Xia Chuan's attack on Wushuang. Only Mengyi and Hong Tian, along with 1,000 Great Xia earth-digging realm troops, were stationed at the beehive, so he directly instructed the guard to notify Mengyi. Upon hearing Yuan Cheng's words, the guard, although puzzled, detected the gravity in his tone and quickly tossed 2 pieces of solidified fire oil out, saying, "I'll go notify Lord Meng immediately. Director Yuan, please wait briefly." Yuan Cheng caught the solidified fire oil, swiftly crushed and smeared it around the wound, and then began observing the state of the white dewdrops. SSS. The milky white dewdrops, upon contact with the solidified fire oil, immediately emitted a faint smoke and then started to condense and fade, gradually becoming transparent, eventually changing into clear water-like droplets. Yuan Cheng wiped his hand over, and his eyes were suddenly filled with delight. Thankfully it works. When climbing out from the pile of corpses and seeing that the dewdrops were different from the previous night, he was always somewhat uneasy, worried that the white dew goo's power had strengthened, making the dewdrops harder to remove. Luckily, the solidified fire oil still proved effective. Yuan Cheng, what's the situation? Meng Yi arrived, walking out directly from the base of the giant stone, approaching Yuan Cheng. Don't come near me. First, have someone prepare a batch of solidified fire oil for me. Yuan Dao is severely injured, along with a group trapped near Yangyuan Peak. I need to rush back to rescue them. There is a situation of extreme urgency with Yang Lu that I must tell you first. You should immediately inform the lords at Wushuang. Meng Yi was aware that Yuan Dao was disguised as Lin Yi at Yang Lu, while Yuan Cheng took people to support. Hearing Yuan Cheng's serious tone, although curious as to why he couldn't approach, he immediately ordered someone to prepare the solidified fire oil, focusing intently on Yuan Cheng's words. With each piece of information received, victory of the Longyu army, Wu Ying's death, Wu Xing and Han Jiulai's defeat, Yuan Dao plighted by Li Xuanxiang, Meng Yi's face turned increasingly grave. Finally, upon hearing about White Du Gu and the plague, Meng Yi's pupils suddenly contracted, and his expression turned extremely solemn. Wait here, the solidified fire oil will be delivered soon. I will now head to Wushuang to report to the lords. All right, make sure to hurry. Wushuang Giant Stone Camp, main building. There were only 3 people in the main building, with Xia Chuan seated at the head, and below him Peng Bo and Luo Yuan. However, both Xia Chuan and Luo Yuan were smilingly staring at Peng Bo. Peng Bo, seated on the left, was cautiously holding a cup of aged wine, savoring its aroma for several breaths, intoxicated for a long while before taking a sip, afterward revealing an expression of utter enjoyment, and finally sighing after relishing it for a long time. I've lived over 50 years, never tasted anything this good before. What did you just call this, my lord? Wine, it's called aged wine, considered the most common type in Great Xia right now. Upon hearing that there was even better wine, Peng Bo's eyes instantly lit up. Glancing at the bundle on Xia Chuan's table, and with a sneaky smile, he hesitantly opened his mouth. Is there something better, my lord, is it possible? Ha, don't even think about it. The production of this thing is not much. I just happen to have a bottle on hand to let you taste it. When we return to Xia City, you can find the camp supply department to exchange for it. Haha, this is just aged wine. If you tasted a sip of blood-cold wine, you'd probably never forget it for a lifetime, Lord Peng. After merely tasting a cup, Peng Bo had already opened his mouth to ask for more. This demonstration of the strong allure of the wine made Xia Chuan and Luo Yuan chuckle, and a sense of pride arose within them. Though the strength of Great Xia might not be the greatest in Longyu, in terms of productivity and resource abundance, based on the situation they observed, even Long Mountain and Zhejiang were no match for Great Xia. Seeing the pride in their eyebrows, Peng Bo not only felt an attraction to the blood-cold wine, but also found himself growing more eager about Xia City, which they repeatedly mentioned. Having been a leader for so many years, Peng Bo had sharp insight. His decision to join Great Xia was largely due to the life-saving grace extended to his 3 grandsons, but the inadvertently revealed elements from Xia Chuan and others were also very significant. There's no need to elaborate on their strength. From what they observed, the combined earth-digging realm numbers of Beehive and Wushuang had already reached 2,500, with over a dozen at cold resistance level. Even just these stats showed that Great Xia was only slightly inferior to Long Mountain and Zhejiang. Crucially, this was only a part of Great Xia's strength projected into Longyu. Regarding resource abundance, even without this cup of aged wine in front of them, one could infer much from the light golden armor worn by those in the earth-digging realm of Great Xia and the clothing beneath it. Xiaming, Xiaofeng, and Xiaozu will set off to Xia City tonight. They will see what Xia City is like before me. While Peng Bo looked forward to this, he couldn't help but feel reassured, thinking that his 3 grandsons would get to Xia City first and enjoy all kinds of materials he had never seen. Luo Yuan, how is the resettlement task arranged? Upon hearing Xia Chuan's sudden question, Luo Yuan immediately nodded excitedly, saying, everything is arranged. At Wushuang, counting 821 captives, the total population is 25,210. They will be divided into 5 batches, led by Han Gang, Huang Yang, Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao, and Lu Yang. 5 intermediate hunting teams will make 5 round trips to first take people to the beehive. Once they reach the beehive, they will then proceed south in batches through Jing Valley and finally to Xia City. Chapter 558, Chapter 241, Message, Rebellion, and the Strange Wuxing 3. 25,000 people, it's definitely impossible to relocate them all at once. Split into 5 groups and then have 5 cold resistance level leaders escort them personally. That would solve the problem. Detecting the enthusiasm in Luo Yuan's tone, Xia Chuan nodded with a light smile, which couldn't hide the happiness on his brow. Counting Wuxuang's more than 25,000 people, along with the beehive's 33,000, this wave of population surge for Great Xia would be unprecedented. The key is that, during the few months since my brother Xia Hong left, we haven't been idle. The population has been steadily increasing the entire time. Once these 2 groups are all relocated back to Xia City, our total population in Great Xia will be roughly. How can my Wuxuang men allow themselves to be so violated? Have your spines been removed? I'm back, so what are you all afraid of? Everyone pick up your weapons and resist. Xia Chuan, calculating the total population, hadn't finished his words when he was interrupted by a shout of rage from outside. He quickly looked up towards the outside, and upon hearing the words, his expression changed instantly, rushing out directly. It's Wuxing's voice. Peng Bo drew his sword and charged out, even faster than Xia Chuan, simply because he recognized that the voice belonged to Wuxing. The 3 of them stormed out of the main building and discovered a fierce battle had already begun next to a large wooden house on the right side. A small yellow figure wielding a long staff was being besieged by Han Guang, Zhu Yuan, and Zhao Hu, and Huang Yang, Han Gang, and others who heard the commotion behind were also joining in the siege. Wuxing, you dog, I'll take your life. Seeing that it was actually Wuxing himself, Peng Bo, without thinking, charged forward with the ghost head great saber, substituting for Han Guang's main attack position, and launched a frantic assault on Wuxing, his momentum fierce to the extreme. Swish, swish, swish. However, it wasn't just these cold resistance level individuals fighting. From the right side of the large wooden house and the other 4 buildings near the main building, arrows started being shot out in constant streams, all aimed at the cold resistance level members of Great Xia. Don't move, nobody move. Anyone who moves again will die. Do you have a death wish? Whoever dares to move again, kill them for me. The leader is back, brothers, don't be afraid. Wuxuang is our home, we can't let these people take it. Charge with me. Right, they killed so many of us and still dream of ruling us. To hell with Great Xia, resist with the leader, chase them away. They, Han Guang and Zhu Yuan, just assist Peng Bo in the siege. The rest of you, come inside with me and suppress those rebellious traitors. Upon hearing the disturbances from several wooden houses, and realizing it was those from Wuxuang causing the turmoil, Xia Chuan did not hesitate for a moment and gave immediate commands. After defeating Wuxuang earlier, he only restricted the earth-digging realm. The remaining people, both for convenience and to appease morale, were confined to 5 wooden houses without even confiscating their weapons. Each house was simply guarded by 100 earth-digging realm members, taking turns on watch. Among these over 5,000 people, the vast majority were ordinary, with a few in the logging realm. It wasn't that 100 earth-digging realm couldn't control them. The problem was Wuxing, as a leader, evidently had great rallying power. If the chaos couldn't be contained and everyone was incited by him, too many would be killed, which in the end would still be Great Xia's loss. Therefore, the chaos must be suppressed first. Peng Bo, Han Guang, and Zhu Yuan, the 3 of them encircling, Wuxing had nowhere to escape. Xia Chuan gazed at Wuxing briefly and immediately brandished the black blade in his hand, charging into the most chaotic wooden house. Rushing into the wooden house, seeing the people shooting arrows by the second-floor window, Xia Chuan's expression darkened. He directly leaped onto the second floor, and the black blade slashed horizontally. Crack! With this slash, more than 20 people clustered by the window were all decapitated. The people behind, attempting to rush forward, were splashed with blood, and their expressions instantly calmed, pupils filled with terror. Keep killing, it doesn't matter if they stop or not, kill 500. Xia Chuan shouted angrily, raising his voice, so everyone in this house and those in the other 4 houses heard it too. In each house, there were 100 members of the Great Xia earth-digging realm, and Xia Chuan had just ordered, except for Zhu Yuan and Han Guang. The other 6 cold resistance level went inside to help suppress the chaos. So Xia Chuan's command was quickly executed. Whether the rebels stopped or not, they had to kill 500. Thud and crack slash. The wooden houses holding Wushwang's over 25,000 individuals instantly began a bloodbath of extreme violence. To say that the number of people involved in the turmoil in each house was over 500 would be an understatement, but Great Xia's sheer act of slaughter, without even asking, still made all the Wushwang people wake up instantly. Regardless of whether they participated in the rebellion, they all woke up. I didn't participate in the rebellion, don't kill me. Neither did I surrender, I shouldn't have rebelled. Stop it quickly, we can't let them kill any more. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Sadly, they realized it too late. No matter how pitiful their pleas for mercy were, the people on Great Xia's side, from Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao and other cold resistance level members, down to the 500 earth-digging realm members, never stopped. The wooden house where Xia Chuan was located, Wushwang's people frantically retreated to the walls, while the earth-digging realm members at the door continued the slaughter, and Xia Chuan even more so. Wielding the black blade, he was hacking away furiously, his face aflame with anger without the slightest pause. Chaos, rebellion with Wuxing, and you think you can turn the world upside down. Seems Great Xia has been too lenient towards you. Chapter 559, Chapter 241, Message, Rebellion and the Strange Wuxing 4. You have mistaken the mercy of the Great Xia for weakness. If you like rebellion, if you like chaos, then let you enjoy chaos to your heart's content. Die, all of you, die for me. The strongest in the room were merely of the logging realm. How could they possibly stop Xia Chuan? With every word Xia Chuan spoke, he swung the black blade, taking away over a dozen lives. He forcibly created a small pit of corpses inside the room, and only when the number of the dead counted to nearly 500 did he stop, along with a group from the earth-digging realm. The speed in the other 4 wooden houses was slightly slower, but they too eventually fell silent, clearly having been killed into submission. The over 4,000 remaining inside, from the elderly to the young adults, down to the children, looked at Xia Chuan, covered head to toe in blood. Their eyes were filled with horror, not daring to make any sound. Some women holding infants were so afraid of their babies making noise that they even covered their mouths. Xia Chuan, drenched in blood, his once handsome and refined face blurred beyond recognition, coupled with a pair of furious blood-red pupils and that exceptionally large black blade in his hand, the whole person resembled a demon, sending chills down spines. If you like rebellion, you can continue, but let me say this first: next time, regardless of the reason, if there is such a disturbance or rebellion again, it won't stop at just 500 deaths. Xia Chuan's voice was still loud, his words clearly reaching the ears of everyone in the 5 wooden houses. He then ceased to look inside, drew his blade and walked towards the outside. But as he reached the door, he suddenly stopped again. The over 4,000 inside saw Xia Chuan stop at the door. Their nerves, which had just relaxed a bit, tightened up immediately, all looking at his back in terror, not daring to make the slightest sound. Clean up the ground, and no one is allowed to make any more sound. At least another 2,500 people died from this. This debt naturally fell on Wuxing, who incited everyone to rebel. Xia Chuan stepped out of the wooden house, looking coldly at Wuxing, who was being surrounded and attacked. Seeing that Wuxing was already showing signs of defeat, he directly drew his blade and charged forward. Wuxing, who was being attacked by 3 people, sensed the black blade coming and suddenly drew his staff to block behind him. Unfortunately, the black blade in Xia Chuan's hand was no ordinary weapon. Crack! The black staff was not only broken. Xia Chuan's blade cut directly into Wuxing's spine, forcibly splitting him forward 20 or 30 meters. Boom! Fortunately, the snow inside the Wushwang camp was sparse, so Wuxing directly hit the ground. His body plunged into the earth, sliding forward 7 or 8 meters before finally coming to a slow stop. Zhu Yuan and Han Guang were still all right, but Peng Bo, who had just assumed the main attack, was stunned, his expression full of shock seeing the power of that slash. Wuxing possessed the 7 main power, and during the earlier attack, he was actually the main force, with Han Guang and Zhu Yuan at most being secondary. In fact, Peng Bo always felt that at that moment, he could be the one to assume the main attack. But Xia Chuan's one slash completely overturned his assumptions. Wasn't Xia Chuan supposed to have only 6 manes worth of power? Gulp. Peng Bo looked back at Xia Chuan, only to find that at some point, 3 vertical blood-red cloud patterns had appeared on Xia Chuan's forehead. No, not only Xia Chuan. Zhu Yuan and Han Guang, who had just been attacking Wuxing together, also had them on their foreheads. Leaving aside Peng Bo's shock, Xia Chuan's anger had not yet been fully quenched. He drew his blade, heading straight for Wuxing, not giving him the slightest chance to breathe. Swish. However, a shocking scene unfolded. Wuxing, whose spine was nearly cut through, unexpectedly climbed up from the ground in front and quickly fled towards the north of Wushuang. What is going on? Peng Bo, Zhu Yuan, Han Guang, and the 6 others, including Luo Yuan who came out of the wooden house later, were all stunned at the sight of Wuxing fleeing. They all saw clearly that Xia Chuan's slash definitely broke Wuxing's spine. Under such circumstances, that Wuxing could stand up and run, how was it possible? There's something strange going on. Peng Bo, Han Guang, Zhu Yuan, follow me in pursuit. If others were surprised, the one who personally struck the slash, Xia Chuan, naturally was even more so. His expression was shaken. Realizing something was off, he leaped in pursuit and called out to the others. Peng Bo, Han Guang, Zhu Yuan immediately followed in pursuit behind him. Chapter 560, Chapter 242, Trouble at Long Mountain, you arrived too late. North of Wushuang Giant Stone Camp, Snowfield. A small figure in a yellow cloak was desperately fleeing northward across the snow. Whoosh! An iron arrow suddenly shot from behind, piercing straight through the shoulder of the figure, causing their already stumbling steps to become even more unsteady. Trying to run is not that easy. Xia Chuan held up a pale gold giant bow, his eyes cold as he knocked another silver iron arrow after shooting the first. The pale gold iron core bow in his hand, named Divine Arm, has a pulling power of 6 main power, which is the pinnacle of the great Xia's current forging craftsmanship. It was made using a new material that Mu Dong accidentally obtained from Huayuan during Xia Hong's absence, in addition to the previous Jiao tendon and snow bamboo silk. Originally, Xia Chuan brought the divine arm to Longyu this time to give it to his elder brother, but since he hasn't seen Xia Hong, he had to keep it with him. At present, while pursuing Wuxing, it has just come in handy. Xia Chuan drew the bowstring and shot again. The 6 main powers divine arm bow is not just unique in its bowstring material. The bow body and even the arrows are all made of 1,000 forged iron. The iron arrow itself is small, with thousands of silver forging patterns densely stacked together, making it appear silver in color. Bang! The sound of the divine arm bow shot is completely different from an ordinary bow. The bowstring, which endures the 6 main power, returned abruptly to its position. As Xia Chuan, who was in pursuit, slightly paused, the nearby snow on the ground was blown outward by the air current caused by the bowstring's return, which showcases the power of this bow. Whoosh! Even the mere return of the bowstring can cause such a disturbance, not to mention the arrow shot out. The iron arrow came like a meteor in an instant, no different from the previous one, which pierced straight through Wuxing's nape. Thud! Wuxing plunged headfirst into the snow. The impact of the iron arrow crushed his body forward for more than a dozen meters, the snow piling high in front, ultimately forming a small snow hill, and his presence is lost within it, life or death uncertain. Pierced through the nape, undoubtedly dead. Not even a god could save him. Xia Chuan, along with Peng Bo and the other 2 following behind him, had a fleeting look of joy in their eyes. But as the snow hill suddenly exploded, a black shadow darted out from within and continued fleeing northward, leaving them all momentarily stunned. Is he still alive? This is strange. This can't be Wuxing, right? While Peng Bo and the other 2 were in a daze, Xia Chuan had already chased after him. Not only that, but his expression also became exceptionally grave. He can't die, this is. It can only be explained as something supernatural. Not long ago, at the Wushuang camp, seeing Wuxing flee after having his spine cut, Xia Chuan was still speculating, but now he can basically confirm it. This Wuxing definitely has some connection with something supernatural. Besides his grave expression, a hint of worry also emerged in Xia Chuan's heart. Yuan Cheng and Yuan Dao were both at Yangyuan Peak last night. Worry aside, seeing Wuxing has already fled over 300 meters away, Xia Chuan quickly retrieved a piece of solidified fire oil from his chest, crushed it, and smeared it onto the arrow before once again taking aim at the fleeing Wuxiang. Bang! The iron arrow shot through the air, this time aiming at Wuxiang's rear skull. Swishing! From a distance, Wuxiang seemed to sense something as he suddenly ducked and bent down, the silver iron arrow almost brushing past his scalp. Even though he avoided this fatal arrow, Wuxiang showed no sign of relief on his face, because the terrifying air current created by the iron arrow that just fell had knocked him to the ground directly. At such an opportunity, how could Xia Chuan let it go? Whoosh! The next second, a black blade swept across 10 or more meters of snow waves, reflecting in Wuxiang's slightly panicked pupils, and came straight to cleave his head. Clang! However, the expected decapitation scene did not occur. A silver snake spear blocked Wuxiang's front, not only resisting Xia Chuan's black blade, but even pushing back toward Xia Chuan. Who are you? Get out of my way! Suddenly being stopped, Xia Chuan immediately roared in anger, but before he could finish speaking, a familiar voice came from nearby. Minister, this is the third son of Long Mountain, Li Xuandu. Qiu Peng. Xia Chuan's brow furrowed. He first withdrew his black blade and looked up at the middle-aged man in white holding the snake spear in front of him. Only then did he notice that not far away, Qiu Peng was leading a group of people towards them. He looked beyond the group following Qiu Peng, spotting 2 wooden houses a kilometer or 2 away, suddenly realizing that he had unknowingly pursued them to the plains where the Long Mountain army was stationed. Wuxiang, after leaving the giant stone camp, had been fleeing north, which was precisely the direction of the Long Mountain garrison. Obviously, the commotion of the chase had startled those from Long Mountain. Qiu Peng was on a mission to Long Mountain, so coming with them was not surprising. Stirring up Long Mountain is a bit troublesome. Peng Bo, Zhu Yuan, and Han Guang from behind also caught up, standing behind Xia Chuan. Qiu Peng also quickly moved away from the other group, standing by Xia Chuan's side and quickly whispering to him. As Qiu Peng reported, Xia Chuan's gaze subtly changed while he sized up the group from Long Mountain. Besides Li Xuandu, who blocked him, Long Mountain had a total of 5 people. The leader was a beautiful woman in white, and the other 4 appeared to be middle-aged, with one of them bearing some resemblance to Li Xuandu. Li Xuanling, Li Xuandu, Li Xuanyan. Knowing the identities of those who came, Xia Chuan's gaze focused on Li Xuandu, seeing Wuxiang already being helped up by him. He immediately interrupted Qiu Peng's recount, directly turned his head to look at the leader, Li Xuanling, and spoke with a slight hint of respect, cupping his hands as he began. Chapter 561, Chapter 242, Long Mountain Causes Trouble, You Arrived Too Late Part 2. Minister Xia Chuan of Great Xia greets the young lord. Li Xuanling, along with 4 others, including Li Xuandu who had just intercepted Xia Chuan, all 6 cold resistance level members present at Long Mountain, focused their gaze on Xia Chuan, with evident scrutiny on their faces. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that, except for Li Xuanling, the other 5 had a subtle hint of shock and even dread deep within their eyes. The person in charge of Great Xia seemed excessively young. Young, yet possessing significant strength. The one who felt this the most keenly was naturally Li Xuandu, who had just blocked Xia Chuan's blade. He put away the snake spear, glanced at Wuxiang behind him, and signaled him with an eye gesture. Wuxiang, who had narrowly escaped death, had a face full of gratitude, and upon receiving the signal, he immediately moved behind Li Xuanling and the other 4. Young lord, it's likely that Wuxiang has been controlled by a ghostly creature, or he himself is transformed into one. Long Mountain must not harbor him. With these words, the entire place fell silent for more than 10 breaths. Xia Chuan lifted his head, noticing the slightly cunning looks in the eyes of the people from Long Mountain, and after pondering for a moment, he immediately understood what they were thinking. Xia Chuan, your Great Xia invaded Longyu, exterminated my Wushwang camp, killed so many in my camp, and now you even spew lies, falsely accuse me of being a ghostly creature. You are simply too outrageous. Standing behind Li Xuanling, Wuxiang suddenly spoke with indignation, then knelt directly in front of Li Xuanling and the others, lamenting. Wuxiang was previously bewitched and conspired with Hu to betray the alliance. My Wushwang camp has ended up in such a state which is self-inflicted. Whatever punishment Long Mountain imposes, Wuxiang will accept, but what Great Xia did last night at Yanglu, Wuxiang must expose. As he heard this, Xia Chuan's expression turned peculiar, and he directly interrupted Wuxing, saying in a deep voice, "I'm not making baseless claims, young lord. You can look at his back and neck. His back just received a slash from me, and his neck was pierced by my arrow. A normal person could not survive, but he." Before Xia Chuan could finish speaking, his face changed. Because Wuxing stood up directly, walked to the front of the long mountain crowd, and revealed his back and neck. His back indeed had a knife wound, but it was not deep. The back of the neck indeed had an opening, clearly a result of an arrow wound, yet the wound was not deep, just visibly 2 or 3 centimeters. How long had it been, and it's nearly healed already? Peng Bo, Zhu Yuan, Han Guang, the three who had personally seen how severe Wuxing's injuries were just moments ago, were filled with shock. The three even couldn't help but step forward to continue accusing. But before the three could speak, they were stopped by Xia Chuan. "Young lord, last night Han Jiulai and I held guard at Yanglu. The secondary lord led the assault. Long Yu's army was too fierce. We were simply no match. Amidst the bloody battle between the two sides, Great Xia suddenly emerged halfway. In panic I escaped. The secondary lord's outcome is unknown, either killed by Great Xia or captured by them." Whoosh! After Wuxing said these words, Li Xuanling and the other 6 raised their heads in unison, glaring at Xia Chuan and his group of 5 with anger. Moreover, they even adjusted their positions, as if to encircle Xia Chuan and his 5. What exactly happened at Yanglu? Xia Chuan's mind now was solely occupied by this question. The moment Wuxing exposed his injuries, Xia Chuan realized that whatever he said next would be futile. The people of Long Mountain would never believe him. Great Xia captured Wushwang, surely leaving Long Mountain with discomfort. Their act of saving Wuxing was obviously meant to give Great Xia trouble. If he could expose Wuxing's true identity as a ghostly creature, there might still be a chance for reversal. But alas, this ghostly creature not only possesses incredible healing abilities, but also exhibits extreme cunning. "Young lord, I won't say anything extra. Given my current situation, you probably won't believe anything I say now. I have a piece of evidence here. You only need to apply it to Wuxing to understand." Xia Chuan directly took out a piece of solidified fire oil from his breast pocket and tossed it towards Li Xuanling's direction. "Nonsense, quickly hand over my second brother." Whoosh! Li Xuanyan actually started taking action. "Run!" The longsword suddenly struck. Xia Chuan's gaze flickered. The black blade blocked the blow, and without attempting further defense, he led Qiu Peng, Han Guang, and the other 4 to escape directly. Just as they ran, it seemed a bit late. Li Xuanling, Li Xuandu, along with the other 4, had already moved into position earlier, encircling the group of 5, and as Li Xuanyan took action, the 6 almost moved in synchrony. Swish! Li Xuanling, the strongest, didn't go after Xia Chuan but targeted Zhu Yuan, the weakest among them. Her actions were swift as lightning, stabbing Zhu Yuan's shoulder with one sword and following up with a sudden slash towards his neck. Clang! Just as the sword edge was about to strike, Xia Chuan, who had run far out, unexpectedly returned, the black blade horizontally blocking, pulling Zhu Yuan back with leverage, retreating several dozen meters backward. Earlier, when Li Xuandu saved Wuxing from the blade, Xia Chuan had already sensed his strength exceeded his own. Now, after blocking Li Xuanling's sword, he realized this woman's power was even more terrifying than Li Xuandu's. His face changed dramatically, and he shouted to those behind, "Quickly blow the bone whistle for reinforcements." Peng Bo recently joined and still unclear, but Zhu Yuan, Han Guang, and Qiu Peng immediately took out their bone whistles, and while dealing with Li Xuanyan and others, blew relentlessly. Beep, 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 beep. Chapter 562, Chapter 242, Long Mountain Causes Trouble, You Are Too Late, Part 3. They've been pursuing Wuxing for so long that there should be quite a distance from the Wushwang camp by now. Under normal circumstances, it's impossible to seek reinforcements. But the bone whistle in their hands can make it possible. The Great Xia has 2 types of bone whistles now. The ones equipped for the earth-digging realm are made from the nasal bone of the frost wolf, which can transmit sound up to 1 or 2 kilometers at most. The ones equipped for the cold resistance level are made from the nasal bone of the frost electric ape. The sound is crisper and travels farther. Coupled with the strength of the cold resistance level, it can reach up to 20 kilometers. If we want reinforcements, don't worry about anyone else. Follow me to capture Xia Chuan. Li Xuanling made a decisive move, heading straight towards Xia Chuan. The other 6, hearing this, abandoned their current targets and all surrounded Xia Chuan. Save the minister. Qiu Peng didn't hesitate for a moment, directly abandoning his escape and standing alongside Xia Chuan. Han Guang and the injured Zhu Yuan did the same. Even Peng Bo hesitated for only 3 or 4 moments before making the same choice as the 3 of them. I expected this already. However, Li Xuanling's sneer instantly froze the expressions of the 3. Whoosh! The first to bear the brunt was Zhu Yuan. Clearly, Li Xuanling realized that the stronger a person is, the harder they are to kill. To kill the weaker ones first and break them down one by one was the correct method. Zhu Yuan, whose shoulder had already been hit by an arrow, couldn't dodge Li Xuanling's sword. In his haste, he could only twist his body and use his chest to catch the sword's blade that was originally slashing towards his neck. As blood gushed from his chest, Zhu Yuan's face turned instantly pale. Not only did he drop the broadsword in his hand, but he also toppled directly to the ground. Had Xia Chuan not promptly pulled him with white silk threads, Li Xuanling's sword would have severed his head in the next second. Whoosh! However, the situation for Xia Chuan wasn't any better. As soon as he got distracted, Li Xuandu's snake spear pierced his shoulder, tearing a chunk of flesh. Without having time to cry out in pain, he could only grit his teeth and pull Zhu Yuan back, continuing to flee south. At this point, only Peng Bo could still hold them off. Zhu Yuan was severely injured, and Han Guang and Qiu Peng were not strong enough, leaving them no choice but to keep dodging. Prolonged defense will eventually fail, especially against the formidable 7 led by Li Xuanling. Whoosh! Another sword slashed towards Zhu Yuan again. My lord, let go, flee on your own. This time, Zhu Yuan was determined not to burden Xia Chuan any longer. Seeing Xia Chuan unwilling to let go, he gritted his teeth and stood firm, turning back to meet Li Xuanling's sword with his body. At the moment he stood firm, the conflict on Xia Chuan's face flashed and disappeared. He immediately withdrew the silk threads and continued his run, gritting his teeth. In such situations, not a single moment can be wasted. Zhu Yuan, don't worry, I will definitely. Whiz! An iron arrow shot straight from the south side. Xia Chuan looked up, his face bursting with overwhelming joy. On the snowy plains to the south, Luo Yuan, Lu Yang, Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao, Han Gang, and Huang Yang were racing towards them, strong bows in hand. During their flight, the bone whistle never ceased. Luo Yuan and his group had actually come to support them. We're saved, Zhu Yuan, come back quickly. Xia Chuan reacted swiftly. Realizing they were saved, he shouted loudly, released the silk threads, and pulled Zhu Yuan back forcefully. Zhu Yuan cooperated seamlessly. Kicking off the ground, he blocked Li Xuanling's sword with his knife, even though the wound on his chest reopened and blood seeped from his lips. Yet, with Xia Chuan's pulling force, he made a rapid retreat backwards. Swish, swish, swish. The 6, led by Luo Yuan, never stopped shooting arrows. Only after regrouping with the 5 did they strap the bows to their backs, drawing weapons to rush in front of the group. My lord! Zhu Yuan, how are you? My lord, Meng Yi just arrived from the beehive. He said Yuan Cheng returned from Yanglu with urgent news to tell you. I happened to come to find you. Don't talk now, just run back to Wushuang first, we can talk there. Hearing Luo Yuan mention that Yuan Cheng had returned from Yanglu and had sent Meng Yi with a message, Xia Chuan immediately showed joy. But looking back at Li Xuanling's group of 7, he chose to flee first. When Luo Yuan's group of 6 appeared, Li Xuanling and the others were not only annoyed but also somewhat shocked. Don't chase them, if we continue we'll end up at Wushuang. Seeing that Xia Chuan didn't hesitate and chose to flee even with support, Li Xuanling waved his hand to stop the pursuit. Wushuang has the great Xia station troops, pursuing them would endanger their 7. 6 plus 5, this great Xia actually has 11 cold resistance levels. Li Xuandu watched the escaping 11, speaking in a solemn tone. Not only him, but the other 4 in Long Mountain also displayed intense apprehension. Even Li Xuanling showed more seriousness in his eyes. In Longyu Realm, among the 12 families, aside from them and Jieyang, the other 10 camps each had only 3 to 5 cold resistance levels. This sudden appearance from Great Xia having 11 was unbelievably shocking. However, their shock did not stop there. At the back, Wuxing's eyes glinted slightly. He said, "It's not just 11, there are 2 more from Yanglu. I remember one is called Yuan Cheng and the other Yuan Dao." 13. 13, and these are just the ones that came to Longyu. They captured the beehive. How can they not leave someone to guard? Counting Hong Xia too, this great Xia poses a threat no less than Jia Hong. Li Xuandu spoke gravely, and everyone's expressions became even grimmer. "Return to the station, Wuxing. Tell me every detail about Yang Lu." "Yes." Hearing Li Xuanling's words, Wuxing lowered his head, a hint of a twisted smile on his face, quickly following the 6 back to the Longyu station. The Washuang Boulder Station. After Xia Chuan led his group back, the anxious Meng Yi, who had clearly been waiting a long time, changed his expression upon seeing the bedraggled Xia Chuan and his group, intending to ask. "No need to ask, just tell me how Yuan Cheng and Yuan Dao are, and what happened in Yanglu." Meng Yi nodded gravely, immediately recounting the information relayed by Yuan Cheng in full detail. As Meng Yi spoke, Xia Chuan's expression grew increasingly serious, especially upon hearing about the white dew goo and the white dew that transmitted like a plague. His expression changed drastically. Yuan director said that the white dew is contagious on contact, can spread if too close, and those with injuries are more susceptible to infection. He knows of 3,000 to 4,000 who ran down from Yangyuan Peak last night. Wu Ying was killed on the spot. Long Mountain's Li Xuanxiang and his 3 men, Wu Xing, Han Jiulai, and Wu Lin, 7 cold resistance levels disappeared. He doesn't even know how many of the 20,000 to 30,000 were controlled by the ghouls. As Meng Yi continued, Xia Chuan suddenly tore open his clothes, lowering his head to inspect his shoulder and chest. His face immediately darkened. During the attack by Li Xuanling and others, his shoulder and chest sustained several sword cuts. Now, a layer of white dew covered those wounds. Seeing this, Peng Bo, Han Guang, and Qiu Peng immediately uncovered themselves too, pausing at the sight of dew around their wounds. Xia Chuan shook his head, walked to the unconscious Zhu Yuan, and exposed his chest wound. His chest was nearly covered with dew. "It's too late for you." Before Meng Yi could react, Xia Chuan pointed at him and said, "You should check yourself too, see if there's any on you." Meng Yi hastily checked himself, and upon seeing sparse white dew on him as well, his expression froze. "Send someone to communicate. Bring all the stored solidified fire oil from the camp here. Inspect the people at Washuang. I suspect they've all been infected. For now, don't move them to the beehive until the solidified fire oil arrives. Notify the beehive personnel to conduct strict checks. Gather all with dew together. We can't let this spread further." Xia Chuan made a series of deployments, his gaze extremely grave, recalling Wuxing's familiarity with Longyu's situation and his attempt to sow discord between the Great Xia and Long Mountain, giving him chills. This white dew goo is far more challenging than those 2 before. Chapter 563, Chapter 243, Hankyang's Great Battle, Realization After the Fact. Longyu Year 48, April 17. On the rooftop of the main building at Hankyang Station, Xia Hong, who had been sitting cross-legged for most of the day, looked up at the gradually darkening sky, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. The spies sent by Hu Tong will return at night. Even under the best circumstances, if Washuang, Yang Lu, and Beehive send reinforcements, the soonest they can arrive would be late at night or possibly even early morning, meaning there would be no battle tonight. Although Xia Hong understood why Hu Tong sent scouts from the earth-digging realm, he couldn't help but disapprove internally. There aren't many at the cold resistance level, with perhaps fewer than 20 in Zhejiang. Splitting them further means even fewer for Hu Tong's side. With the Long Mountain army watching fiercely nearby, deploying those at the cold resistance level as scouts indeed required some boldness. That being said, during wartime, controlling the surrounding situation is crucial. Sensing opportunities early can secure an invincible position. Knowing both the enemy and oneself ensures victory in every battle. To Xia Hong, the transmission of intelligence during wartime is a critical factor affecting the outcome. If he were commanding this battle, he certainly would have sent those at the cold resistance level as scouts. Maybe I should go check on Beehive. Xia Hong turned his head to look south, his brows slightly knitted. During last night's discussion, he learned that Hu had already sent men to deal with Beehive. What intrigued him most now was the state of Beehive. Knowing Xia Chuan's personality, he will definitely come over. The question is, how far will he go? Will he just help Beehive defend against Jia Hong, or will he be smart enough to act like the hunter waiting for the opportunity? Xia Hong understood his brother well. As the great Xia expanded, Xia Chuan's aggressive nature surfaced, especially after realizing how resources could aid his cultivation. His eagerness to expand territory only intensified. Within all this, there seemed to be an element of wanting to prove something to his elder brother. Xia Hong stared south for a while, then subtly glanced to both sides before finally shaking his head, suppressing his inner impulse. Given his current strength, the two pairs of eyes persistently watching him from the shadows were naturally unable to escape his notice. Earlier today, a new cold resistance level individual arrived at the station. Judging by the direction, they likely came from Zhejiang or White Abyss to the north, probably sent by Hu Hu. Since that person's arrival, two pairs of eyes had been fixed on him. It seems Hu Hu is starting to distrust me. A mischievous glint appeared in Xia Hong's eyes. Managing to develop Zhejiang so significantly, Hu Hu was certainly not simple. If the other party were to belatedly notice something suspicious about him, Xia Hong wouldn't be surprised. The question is, what is the meaning of sending two people to keep an eye on me? Are they trying to monitor and restrict me to the Hankyang station, or? Not to mention, Hankyang station currently has 2,500 earth-digging realm individuals, plus 6 at the cold resistance level. If the intent is indeed to keep an eye on him, it would be entirely feasible. But that doesn't seem right. Hu Hu might be suspicious of me, but he wouldn't go to such lengths and expenses just to deal with me. Xia Hong furrowed his brow, pondering what other motives Hu Hu might have. After contemplating for a while, Xia Hong still came up empty-handed. In the end, he could only sigh slightly. Finally, free and independent, yet this feeling of having no one to use is truly unsatisfying. The root of the matter lay in the fact that he had too little control over the information concerning the current battle situation in Longyu. Ultimately, with only 12 camps in Longyu, spanning 13,000 square kilometers, it wasn't particularly large. If in the Great Xia, he could have sent people to gather intelligence, and once compiled, everything would be clear. Worrying is futile. First, see what concoction Hu Hu's brewing. If he really intends to deal with me, it's not going to be that simple. A glint of cold flashed in Xia Hong's eyes. His true combat strength remained unknown to everyone in Longyu, including Hu Hu and Li Tiancheng. Just this fact alone left him invincible. Amidst his contemplation, the sky finally turned completely dark. Excluding the 2,500 earth-digging realm individuals, the remaining population in the Hankyang camp was about 35,000. Although it was wartime and outdoor hunting, and similar activities were halted, life inside the station hadn't changed much. Inside the station, sparse groups of people began to emerge from the wooden houses, either preparing meals, forging iron, or mining, each starting their bustling nighttime routines. It is worth noting that Hankyang Station was also set in a valley, remarkably similar to the Great Xia. Located on the eastern side of Longyu under the cliff of Twin Dragon Mountain, unlike the natural valley of the Great Xia, the gourd-shaped valley of Hankyang was manually excavated. The entire station was composed of two circular spaces, with the outer layer having a diameter of over 700 meters and the inner layer over 1 kilometer. The narrow gourd waist in the middle was only about 20 meters wide. In such a small area, accommodating over 30,000 people naturally required thoughtful architecture. All the buildings in Hankyang were more than 5 stories high, constructed from wood and iron, the most sensible and sturdy type of housing Xia Hong had ever seen. Especially notable was the main building where Xia Hong was currently situated, which was built against the stone wall deep inside the valley. At over 70 meters tall, with 15 floors, Xia Hong was almost left gaping in amazement upon seeing it for the first time yesterday. Human wisdom is indeed not to be underestimated. Regardless of the strength of these camps, their ability to adapt to local environments is impressive. You can see this from the different types of architecture. If these talented individuals could be brought together, the level of building construction in the Great Xia would surely rise significantly. Chapter 564, Chapter 243, Hankyang's Great Battle, Realization After the Fact, Part 2. Xia Hong surveyed the houses inside Hankyang Station, marveling at the wisdom of the humans in these ice abyss camps. Whoosh! Suddenly, a faint abnormal airflow noise reached his ears. Xia Hong's expression changed slightly, and he quickly turned his head toward the direction of the valley entrance. Is that the sound of arrows? The wooden building was over 1,700 meters from the valley entrance, generally too far away for Xia Hong to hear the sound of ordinary iron arrows under normal circumstances. But this particular iron arrow clearly had unusual force, causing significant airflow noise, which Xia Hong managed to hear. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sequence of rhythmic sounds of iron arrows cutting through the air came again, convincing Xia Hong that something was wrong. He immediately leaped down the main building, swiftly heading towards the valley entrance. Lord Hong, do you have? There's an enemy attack, quickly alert everyone. Two hidden figures sprang out and pursued him upon seeing Xia Hong's movement. As they chased, they opened their mouths to inquire, but Xia Hong interrupted them before they could finish. Upon hearing Xia Hong's words, the two men exchanged glances, and one of them immediately turned back to enter the main building, while the other continued to follow Xia Hong towards the valley entrance. In wartime, Hankyang relocated everyone to the inner space of the valley, while 2,500 earth-digging realm warriors stationed and guarded the outer layer. Whoosh and whoosh and whoosh. The closer Xia Hong got to the valley entrance, the clearer the sound of iron arrows cutting through the air became. When he was still 100 meters away, he raised his head to look at the valley entrance. His face changed, and he shouted loudly. There's an enemy attack, stay alert. Even though it was nighttime, Xia Hong's eyesight far surpassed others. He could see clearly the guards scattered above and along the iron door at the valley entrance, who were falling one by one with each arrow noise. This was evidently a skilled cold resistance level archer in a hidden spot not far from the valley entrance, systematically targeting the personnel guarding the iron door with a strong bow. The places these iron arrows struck were extremely precise, either the throat or the center of the forehead, almost always resulting in a one-hit kill. Those who fell were unable to even emit a cry, only the faint sounds of bodies hitting the ground. The 2,500 earth-digging realm warriors stationed outside were positioned somewhat away from the valley entrance, so they could not hear anything. Enemy attack, what enemy attack? Who is yelling about an enemy attack? I don't see anyone. Where is the enemy attack coming from? Who's talking nonsense? You want to die? Don't speak recklessly. It's probably Lord Hong. At this time, quite a few earth-digging realm warriors were outside. Upon hearing Xia Hong's voice, almost everyone doubted him. Even those near the valley entrance iron door felt the same. But soon enough, someone noticed something was wrong. There's an enemy attack, hide quickly. It's real, someone's shooting arrows outside, and there are bodies on the ground. Enemy attack, there's an enemy attack. Someone hurry and close the door quick. There's truly an enemy attack. There's a huge army outside. Long Mountain is attacking. Woo! A bright horn sound completely shattered the silence. Rumble, rumble. Suddenly, the earth-shaking noise followed, and the expressions of those who initially doubted outside the valley layer immediately changed. The cold resistance level warrior who was following Xia Hong also finally had a change in expression. He rushed up to the iron door at the valley entrance, saw the massive Long Mountain army flooding towards the valley, and instantly turned pale. He then shouted frantically into the valley. Close the gate quickly, hurry, hurry, hurry. Upon hearing this, 400 earth-digging realm warriors charged out, split into two groups, and moved to the left and right sides of the iron door, pulling up the iron locks from the ground. As they pulled strongly into the valley, the two enormous iron doors, over 10 meters high and 3 meters thick on either side, began to close. Too late. Standing atop the iron door, Xia Hong first glanced at the distance of the army outside the valley, then looked at the speed at which the iron doors were closing, and immediately shook his head. His guess proved to be correct. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 200-meter distance was already within the army's bow and arrow range. Waves of straight arrow rain surged through, precisely passing through the yet unclosed iron doors, directly targeting the 400 earth-digging realm warriors who were pulling the chains at the sides. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of iron arrows killing echoed through the outer valley, causing chaos among the 400 earth-digging realm warriors. Consequently, the speed of closing the iron doors became even slower. Kill all Hankyang traitors. Long Yu army, follow me to kill the enemy. Brothers charge. Exterminate Hankyang rebels to uphold Long Mountain's glory. Charge. The first 1,000 rushing in were all wearing 10 forged iron armor, noticeably not the configuration of Long Yu's army, yet they carried Long Mountain's prestige and combined with their high morale, their momentum was equally intimidating. They covered the 200-meter distance in less than 6 breaths. And by this time, the iron doors were not even halfway closed. Clang! Above the iron door, Xia Hong drew the dragon sparrow saber and sliced through a small wave of arrow rain, scanning the thousands of Long Yu archers behind with a slightly concentrated expression. All of them are using 30-stone power bows. No wonder they can't hold up inside. The outer layer is definitely defenseless. The 2,500 within the valley did not need to be seen by Xia Hong. Just from comparing the force on both sides, it was clear that if they could close both iron doors, they could still fight against the Long Mountain army at the entrance. But now the iron doors were breached, the strategic point lost, there was no chance at all. The 2,000 or so Long Mountain army must have snuck over as soon as night fell, most likely with cold resistance-level warriors paving the way, eliminating Hankyang's sentries along the patrol route, before lying in wait outside. Chapter 565, Chapter 243, Hankyang's Great Battle, Realization After the Fact Part 3. Although the situation of the guards at the gate was unclear just now, the enemy's execution was clean and efficient, without alarming anyone, clearly prepared. Charge! 3 cold resistance level wielding large blades swiftly passed through the crowd and directly burst into the iron gate, cutting through a wave of arrows from the earth-digging realm within the valley with their horizontal blades, roaring angrily towards the hundreds of earth-digging realm individuals working together to close the gate. Wuxiang Zhou Yuan Meng Ying stop. A sharp voice came. Hankyang's army commander Hu Tong finally arrived. Not only did he arrive alone, but all 5 cold resistance level left behind to guard Hankyang had also arrived. The 6 formed pairs and surrounded Wuxiang's group of 3. Without any unnecessary words, the 6 quickly took action to drive the 3 away, preventing them from interfering with those closing the iron gate. Bang! Hu Tong's silver 8-sided giant hammer fiercely struck towards Zhou Yuan. Although Zhou Yuan dodged, the hammer hit the ground, causing a vibration that made Zhou Yuan stumble, nearly failing to stand. Wuxiang, how dare you betray us? Hu Tong, unsuccessful in his strike, was full of fury, not directed at Zhou Yuan but towards Wuxiang on the other side. Unfortunately, Wuxiang merely glanced back at him, eyeing the silver giant hammer in his hand briefly before ignoring him and focusing on dealing with the 2 others attacking him. 6 against 3, the cold resistance level of Long Mountain was clearly at a disadvantage. However, the earth-digging realm quickly balanced this disadvantage. As the speed of the iron gate closing slowed, the entry of Long Mountain's army quickened. Over 1,000 soldiers quickly occupied the area near the iron gate, then pushed forward into the valley. Soon they cleared space for the rear Long Yu army. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The first batch of Long Yu army finally entered the iron gate. They didn't rush in but aimed their bows at the 6 cold resistance level, attacking Zhou Yuan's group, then began shooting continuously. The defeating stance of Zhou Yuan's group faded somewhat with the help of the iron arrows, suddenly easing the pressure considerably. Moreover, as more Long Yu army entered the iron gate and joined in the archery, the 3 even began to counter Hu Tong's group of 6. Lord Hung, it's time for you to act. Seeing his side retreating, Hu Tong finally couldn't resist shouting for assistance towards Xia Hong, who was still above the iron gate. Clunk! Unfortunately, the response from above the iron gate was a loud crash. A special iron arrow shot from above, deflected by Xia Hong's blade. The arrow, stripped of most of its power, changed direction once and still managed to embed itself firmly into the 3-meter thick iron gate. Xia Hong, landing on the ground, looked up at the densely packed large rocks above the mountain wall. His expression became slightly somber. The skilled cold resistance level archer was hiding behind the rocks on the cliff, clearly the one who had methodically cleared the guards at the valley entrance. With at least 14 main strength, capable of wounding me, aimed at vital points that could kill me, this Long Mountain can actually produce such a bow. This is troublesome. Xia Hong instinctively glanced outside the iron gate, already calculating in his mind whether it was time to retreat. Long Mountain's strength was strong. More than half of the Long Yu army had already entered the valley entrance, and the hundreds of earth-digging realm in the chain area had long begun to retreat, their positions occupied by Long Mountain's people, surrounding the outer 2,000 earth-digging realm. Some had already contacted Long Mountain's army. As Xia Hong predicted, upon collision, the allied forces of Zhejiang and Hankyang collapsed backward like paper. He was not there to fight to the death. If Hankyang couldn't withstand this, he had to plan his retreat. However, Xia Hong's reaction seemed delayed. Whiz, whoosh, slash, a sword, a blade, a spear. 3 cold resistance-level individuals wielding different weapons suddenly leaped down from the air on the rock wall, their target obviously Xia Hong. Even more critical, the Longyu army that just supported Wuxing's group with arrows also turned at this moment, aiming at Xia Hong, and unleashed an incredibly dense rain of arrows. Target is me. Xia Hong, realizing the situation belatedly, his complexion suddenly turned ashen like blood. Chapter 566, Chapter 244, Hunted Down, Strength and Rescue. The Long Mountain army, which was originally heading towards the Hankyang camp, suddenly turned and came towards him. With 3 formidable cold resistance-level fighters heading straight for him, Xia Hong couldn't fail to react. In this emergency, there was no time to ponder why. Clang, clang, clang. Xia Hong's clothes billowed, his skin tightened. He swiftly parried the longsword in the middle, then drew back his blade, and in a flash clashed with a broadsword and a spear separately. So fast. The longsword at TWELVE Chinese letter, the broadsword at ELEVEN Chinese letter, and the spear at TEN Chinese letter. Xia Hong ignored the exclamations overhead. From those simple collisions, he could clearly gauge the strength of the 3, and then he abruptly turned and sprinted towards the iron gate. Thud, 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 thud. Hundreds of sharp arrows rained down, striking his back. This was why Xia Hong was sprinting. Compared to the arrows shot by the Longyu army, the threat of the 3 fighters above was greater. He could only choose to first deal with those 3. But the price for dealing with them was having to endure this wave of arrow rain. The sound from the iron arrows hitting his back revealed that the first wave of arrows hadn't caused much harm to Xia Hong. Only 2 iron arrows seemed to penetrate flesh when listened to carefully. Keep shooting, block the gate, don't let him escape. Li Chuanling's cool voice echoed, and half of the Longyu army that had entered the valley immediately set up their bows again, commencing a second round of arrow fire. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Get out of my way. As the sound of the second round of iron arrows broke through the air, Xia Hong, just 20 meters from the iron gate, roared in anger, holding his yi blade in front of him and charging straight at the Longyu army ahead. Only half of the Longyu army had entered the iron gate. The other half was still stuck at the gate, blocking his path. And then factoring in Li Chuanling, Li Chuanyan and Li Chuanxiang, the 3 cold resistance levels. Not to mention, there was also a divine archer of FOURTEEN Chinese letter above. They're really out to kill me. Hearing the sound of arrows rain behind him, Xia Hong's pupils suddenly showed a hint of thrill. As his strength grew, he rarely faced such a life-and-death crisis. The last time things were this tough, he was dealing with a wood puppet monster in the valley. Looking at the Longyu army blocking the iron gate, his eyes gradually turned bloodthirsty. If you won't move, then die. Strictly speaking, Xia Hong had no enmity with the camp on the Longyu side, so even when the Long Mountain army attacked, he hadn't killed anyone. But since the other side had murderous intent first, he wouldn't hold back. Boom! Xia Hong didn't use his blade. He turned sideways and rammed directly into the front line of the Longyu army. With a force of 20 ONE Chinese letter, that's 2,010,000 jin. The explosive force generated by such a terrifying collision could topple even a small mountain. Yet the Longyu army managed to block it. The sound was earth-shattering, and the ferocious impact turned 5 or 6 soldiers in the front row into mincemeat, with at least 20 more falling along the way. The combined formation of over 500 Longyu soldiers around the Iron Gate was slightly disrupted by this impact. All the Longyu soldiers looked at Xia Hong in panic, their expressions more frantic, clearly not expecting his strength to be this formidable. Don't lose formation, encircle him, he's just one man. Li Chuanling's voice came, and the Longyu army immediately calmed down, with over 400 soldiers regaining their confidence and quickly forming a circle, raising their black iron snake spears to surround Xia Hong. The other half of the Longyu army that had just entered the valley returned at this time, joining those who encircled Xia Hong. Together, They formed a thick encirclement, 3 layers deep, sealing Xia Hong tightly in the center. At the very center were hundreds of long spears, while the outer ring continued to shoot arrows. Clearly, these Long Mountain people intended to completely annihilate Xia Hong. Thud, 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 squelch, squelch. The Long Yu soldiers holding snake spears didn't move. Those on the outer ring shot another dense round of arrows. Unlike the previous 2 times, this time they were closer, and more arrows pierced Xia Hong's skin membrane. The Long Yu army was equipped with strong bows of more than 30 stone power, and at such close distance, their power was naturally stronger than before. If it were anyone else, they would probably be turned into a pincushion on the spot. Xia Hong wasn't at ease, relying on his tough skin and swiftly waving his yi blade to successfully block most of the iron arrows. However, a few still managed to pierce his body. Squelch, squelch, squelch. While wielding his blade, Xia Hong nimbly pulled out a total of 4 iron arrows from his shoulder and back, turning to look at the valley's inner side, noticing that the Hankyang Station defenders had completely retreated into the inner valley. His eyes instantly turned icy, especially when he exchanged glances over a distance with Hu Tong at the bottleneck position. Xia Hong immediately understood. A trap. From start to finish, this was a trap set against him. The cold resistance level fighter from the north in the daytime must have brought some orders from Hu. That's why the 2 cold resistance levels had been fixated on him afterward. Even Hu Tong's sluggishness in facing the Long Mountain attack was probably deliberate. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the skill. Xia Hong withdrew his gaze, ignoring the arrows coming from all directions, and wielded his longsword once more, transforming into a gust of wind as he charged fiercely towards the iron gate. Chapter 567, Chapter 244, Besieged Strength and Rescue Part 2. Bang! Just like last time, this time he could only crash into 5 or 6 Long Yu soldiers to death. However, different from before, this time the longsword in his hand moved along with him. Swish! The 1.7-meter long Yu blade, in Xia Hong's hand, seemed like a horizontal sword, not only directly cutting through a dozen long spears, but also killing over a dozen Long Yu soldiers. Though unable to break through the encirclement, he was thoroughly entangled with the Long Yu army in front of the West Iron Gate. The moment they got entangled, the rain of arrows immediately stopped. Let's see how you shoot arrows now, die for me. Of course, Xia Hong wasn't purposely entangled with them. His aim was to prevent the rear Long Yu army from comfortably shooting arrows. The Yi blade flew, drawing silver lights in the night like fleeting lightning. Each silver flash could bring out a blood line, not killing, but forcibly carving a big gap in the west, forcing the surrounding army to retreat. The Long Yu army retreated, but they still hadn't completely let go of the encirclement. They alternated, sending people forward to tangle with Xia Hong. This time the effect was achieved. Daring to meddle in Long Yu, Hong Xia, today is your death day. Li Chuanling's cold, delicate shout rang out as a silver longsword slashed from the rear, aiming precisely at Xia Hong's back of the neck. Both Long Mountain and Zhejiang know about Great Xia now. This thought flashed in Xia Hong's mind. As he held the Yi blade behind him, he parried Li Chuanling's longsword while kicking the ground with both legs, turning around and throwing a punch with his left hand towards Li Chuanling, who had already approached. Clang snap. 2 sounds were heard, one being the Yi blade successfully parrying the longsword, the other being the sound of Xia Hong's left fist getting hit and successfully entangled by a whip. Li Chuanling's agility was astonishingly fast. Taking advantage of Xia Hong throwing a punch as he turned, her right hand that held the sword suddenly exerted force and retreated swiftly, while her left hand drew a whip that flicked around Xia Hong's left wrist with a snap, binding him. Big brother, third brother attack. Li Chuanling dropped the longsword, gripping the long whip with both hands and pulling it back forcefully. Although she couldn't move Xia Hong's body, she detected that his strength was far less than before, and immediately ordered Li Xuanxiang and Li Xuandu to attack. A big blade and a long spear came down from overhead and stabbed from the side. Not just these 3, the Long Yu soldiers encircling them realized the rare opportunity and suddenly pointed their long spears toward the center. That was hundreds of long spears stabbing simultaneously. Xia Hong's face slightly tensed. With a gleam in his left eye, he forcefully pulled the whip, dragging Li Xuanling in front of him. The immense strength of the 21 Chinese letter, Even if the earlier battle had prevented him from exerting full strength, trying to restrain him was not as easy for someone like the mere 12 Chinese letter, Li Xuanling. Li Xuanling was caught off guard, especially when she was pulled in front of Xia Hong with only a meter or two between them. Her pupils showed a hint of panic. She had just thrown away her sword to control Xia Hong with the long whip conveniently. Killing me is not that easy. Xia Hong displayed a disdainful smile, raising the yi blade to place it on Li Xuanling's neck. In the brief moment, he even had a moment to look around at the Longyu soldiers and the ordinary soldiers of Long Mountain at the rear. Those responsible for encircling him were fundamentally Longyu soldiers. Obviously, Li Xuanling also knew that aside from Longyu soldiers, Long Mountain's 1,000-strong ordinary army posed no threat to him, conveniently dispatching them to watch over the Hankyang army retreating into the valley. The ambush targeting him should have been initiated by Long Mountain, with Hu likely only agreeing to stay neutral, which is why Hu Tong led men to retreat inside the valley. Hence, Zhejiang and Long Mountain were still maintaining a wary stance towards each other. In a flash, Xia Hong's mind had already analyzed many things. Just as he was about to withdraw his gaze, his sight suddenly paused at the front of the Long Mountain army. Is that Wuxing? The 3 cold resistance level individuals who first rushed into the valley were named Wuxing, Zhou Yuan, and Meng Ying. Originally, Xia Hong did not know these 3, thanks to Hu Tong for calling out their identities. Xia Hong's gaze lingered on Wuxing because, in his left eye view, a mass of intensely dense red substance surrounded Wuxing. Not just Wuxing, but everyone on the Long Mountain side had a little of it, though not as dense as Wuxing's. Those substances were extremely active, slowly spreading backward, evidently targeting the Hankyang people retreating into the valley. Why does it feel familiar? The process of observing Wuxing's peculiarity might sound slow, but it actually happened in an instant. Xia Hong's actions never stopped. The yi blade was mere centimeters from being placed on Li Xuanling's neck. No, that's not right. At the critical moment, Xia Hong's brow suddenly tightened. As he retracted the yi blade, he swiftly turned his head and his body swiftly flashed to the flank. Swoosh! A silver-glinting iron arrow flew by, passing just above his left eyebrow, not only shooting off the red wood mask on his face, but also tearing away a piece of flesh, blood gushing out, instantly staining half his face red. So young. Upon seeing Xia Hong's true face, Li Xuandu couldn't help but exclaim. Next to him, Li Xuanyun couldn't help but frown slightly, a hint of jealousy and intensified murderous intent flashing deep in his eyes. It wasn't just these 2. Everyone from Long Mountain, including Longyu soldiers from Zhou Yuan, Meng Ying, Wuxing, to ordinary earth-digging realm individuals, even the distant Hu Tong and the people stationed at Hankyang saw it. Chapter 568, Chapter 244, Hunted Down, Strength and Rescue Part 3. The moment they saw Xia Hong's true face, it was filled with disbelief. How can he be so young? Just in his early 20s. Seems about the same age as Li Xuanling. The mask Xia Hong had worn before depicted a face of someone almost 30. Age is not the issue, the key is Xia Hong's strength. The younger the age, the stronger the power, the greater the potential. It's a very simple principle. The first time Xia Hong appeared, saving Hu on the east side of Long Mountain, it already raised the mountain's caution, including Hu didn't say anything then but felt it inside. Cold resistance level, 40 is the norm, and being 30 years old is already considered a genius, like Li Xuanling, who is unique in Longyu in the last 100 years. Recalling Xia Hong's display of power 3 days ago on the right side of Long Mountain, forcing back Li Tiancheng and saving Hu, and now seeing his barely 20-year-old face, the shock in everyone's hearts is imaginable. Shock was secondary, and more so, of course, was apprehension. Hong Xia, that's not your real name either. Great Xia leader Xia Hong is your real identity, isn't it? Among the crowd, only Li Xuanling remained calm. She looked at Xia Hong, not only full of fighting spirit, but even revealing Xia Hong's true identity in one sentence. Xia Hong looked up at Li Xuanling, a smile on his face, lightly sighing, I still underestimated you all. Then he looked curious and asked, I shouldn't have shown any flaws from beginning to end. How did you see through it? Why don't you surrender now, and I'll tell you how about that. Seeing the confident face of Li Xuanling, Xia Hong's smile deepened, glancing at Wuxing behind him, then laughed. Just with the few people on Long Mountain you want to keep me. If Hu Tong and the others join, there might be a chance." Li Xuanling, hearing this, turned to glance inside the valley, her face sinking. Hu Tong had already retreated inside the valley, clearly not planning to join the fight, and now her people were besieging Xia Hong. The biggest beneficiary would be Xia Hong. Xia Hong was hinting, and how could she not understand? Li Xuanling's expression cooled a bit, looking at Xia Hong, saying coldly, "Compared to Xia Yang's Hu, I think you're the real trouble on Long Mountain, so today you must die." As soon as she finished, Li Xuanling charged forward again, with Li Xuanyan and Li Xuandu following closely, quickly entangling with Xia Hong once more. Xia Hong's Yi blade danced, not only fighting against 3 cold resistance levels, but also dodging the spears from Long Yu's soldiers. More importantly, his attention was partially on the hidden divine archer atop the cliff. Li Xuanling's plan was clear. The 3 of them, plus Long Yu's soldiers, were using a war of attrition to wear down his strength and will, while the hidden divine archer awaited the perfect opportunity for a fatal strike. From the iron arrow that pierced through the mask, it was evident that Li Xuanling's strategy was quite effective. "If I let this drag on, I might really meet my end in this misfortune." Xia Hong sneered, looking at the 100 Long Yu soldiers by the iron gate, his eyes growing colder, and while fighting with Li Xuanling and the others, he slowly edged closer to them. Facing fellow humans, Xia Hong still had some reservations about a full-on massacre, but if his life was truly threatened, he wouldn't hesitate any longer. "Kill?" This thought flashed in Xia Hong's mind, his left eye flashing as his body surged forward, swinging his Yi blade at the Long Yu soldiers by the iron gate. Squishing. The brute force of his charge, combined with the rapidly swinging 1,000-forged Yi blade, crushed more than 10 of Long Yu's frontline soldiers into pulp or beheaded them with the blade. Retreat, maneuver, and engage, surround him only. Xia Hong, now fully unleashed, erupted with even greater strength than before, yet Li Xuanling refused to give up, loudly commanding Long Yu's soldiers. Seeing that the Long Yu soldiers had not cleared the iron gate, Xia Hong's left eye abruptly widened, a brilliant light suddenly condensed. Squishing. However, at that moment, an iron arrow suddenly shot in from outside the valley. "Big brother, we're here. Hurt the leader and I'll take your lives. Clear a path for us. Leader, we've come to save you." The iron arrow was just the beginning. As a dozen familiar voices rang out, over 10 iron arrows cloaked in mighty force pierced through 20 to 30 Long Yu soldiers. Whoosh! A black blade suddenly slashed down from outside the iron gate, followed by more than a dozen figures, wielding knives, swords, guns, or hammers, each unleashing terrifying power, clearing a gap in less than 5 or 6 breaths by scattering over 100 Long Yu soldiers defending the gate. Xia Hong's left eye had long returned to normal, turning toward the gap. Xia Chuan, Luo Yuan, Qiu Peng, Lu Yang, Lin Kai, Zhao Long, Zhao Hu, Zhao Bao, Zhu Yuan, Huang Yang, Hong Gang. A wave of familiar faces came into view, and Xia Hong didn't even bother to consider why Chen Yingyuan, Chen Yingba, Wu Tianxing, and Peng Bo were among them. "Haha, you're quite timely." Though it had been only 4 months, seeing the group from Great Xia filled Xia Hong with a joyful smile, quickly dissipating the rising intent to kill inside him. "Haha, looks like the young master's perfect plan is going to fall through." In high spirits, Xia Hong turned back to find Li Xuanling's very unpleasant face, unable to resist a tease. "Hurt big brother, I'll take your lives." Did the arrow hurt the leader's face? Slaughter these dogs. "Hurt the leader, kill." Though Xia Hong's mood improved, Xia Chuan and the others felt differently. Seeing Xia Hong's left face stained with blood, enraged Xia Chuan, and wielding a black blade, he charged at the Long Yu soldiers inside the iron gate. The rest, reminded by him, noticed Xia Hong's facial injury, their anger immediately flaring up, killing intent boiling as they followed Xia Chuan toward the Long Yu soldiers. For them, Xia Hong, this leader, held a status akin to a deity, having become a sacred symbol long ago. Even at cold resistance level, seeing him at the Great Xia station was difficult, and close encounters were even harder to imagine. But now they saw their god, so to speak, wounded like this. This was simply unacceptable for the people of Great Xia. Peng Bo, Chen Yingyuan, Chen Yingba, and Wu Tianxing couldn't comprehend why Xia Chuan and the others were so furious, but seeing Xia Chuan charging ahead with his men, they had no choice but to follow. 15 cold resistance levels, each wielding different weapons, charged toward the iron gate simultaneously. The destruction caused by this charge was far more terrifying than Xia Hong alone before. Big Brother, Divine Arm Bow Catch. Xia Chuan, charging through the gate and having slain 5 or 6 Longyu soldiers, immediately retrieved the pale gold strong bow from his back along with a quiver of iron arrows, tossing them to Xia Hong. Xia Hong caught the bow and arrows, eyeing the 1,000-forged silver pattern on the bow body, testing the bowstring, immediately becoming invigorated, his gaze casually flicking upward to the cliff, a fleeting chill in his eyes. No need to kill, let's go. Xia Hong charged directly toward the gap, calling off the rampaging Xia Chuan and the others, signaling for everyone to retreat. Truth be told, even with so many at the cold resistance level, they couldn't realistically defeat Longyu's army. Xia Chuan's group had merely taken advantage of the fact that the gate was lightly defended. Form ranks and encircle, don't let them break through. Li Chuanling's side had already begun mobilizing Longyu's soldiers. They had no choice but to retreat. Chapter 569, Chapter 245, Cause and Effect. The bigger picture, return to the beehive. The sudden appearance of 15 cold resistance level members from Great Xia doomed the attempt to assassinate Xia Hong at Long Mountain, ensuring it would end in failure. But there was someone who was obviously not willing to give up. Whoosh! Xia Hong dashed through the gap, slipping out of the iron gate. As the sound of iron arrows slicing through the air reached his ears, a dangerous sensation surged up in his heart once again. Only this time, surrounded by Xia Chuan and 14 others, Xia Hong was not as hurried as before. His gaze sharpened slightly, directly setting up the divine arm bow given by Xia Chuan, pulling out a silver iron arrow, raising it to aim and shoot. The whole action was completed smoothly, targeting a giant stone on the cliff wall. At the same time, he suddenly swung the divine arm bow, hitting the iron arrow coming from above, and then in a flash he reached out and caught the iron arrow directly. Boom! The arrow shot by the opponent was caught by him, and the arrow he shot had already accurately hit a giant stone above the cliff wall, producing a loud bang. The cliff wall shattered a piece, rocks and stones falling, mixed with a slightly frantic dark shadow, also tumbling from midair to the side of Li Xuanling and others. The divine archer hiding at the top of the cliff wall finally revealed his true self. It was also a middle-aged man in black clothes, with a slightly gaunt face and slender figure, coupled with a pair of sharp eyes, indeed matched the stereotype most people held of a divine archer. Is that a bowstring? However, Xia Hong first noticed the bow in the opponent's hand without a string, and the large bundle of snow-white strings on his back. It's snow bamboo silk. A single strand of snow bamboo silk has strong toughness. If many strands are woven together, they can indeed bear the tension of over 14 slats for a short period. This person likely changes the bowstring each time he shoots an arrow. Qiu Peng, as the camp supply department director, was very familiar with various materials, and recognized at a glance that the man was carrying snow bamboo silk, immediately analyzing why he could shoot such powerful arrows. Upon hearing this, Xia Hong was instantly somewhat disappointed. He had experienced the force of the 14 slats iron arrow, expecting some new discovery, only to find it was merely disposable items using snow bamboo silk as strings, which were too costly to be widely used. Moreover, having to change it every time was too troublesome. Farewell, young master. Leading Great Xia's group out of the iron gate, Xia Hong turned back to see the unpleasant-looking Li Xuanling, still finding time to tease him, then taking one last look at Hu Tong and others deep in the valley before finally turning away. Xia Chuan and 14 others, although looking towards Longyu with discontented faces, understood that Xia Hong's decision was the right one, quickly following suit. After running more than a kilometer, Xia Hong slowed down, turning his head to look at the group behind him, first showing a smile on his face, then his eyes slightly brightened as he asked, "Have you already taken over the beehive?" Xia Chuan nodded heavily. After 4 months of not seeing Xia Hong, his mood was evidently very excited, first bowing deeply to Xia Hong with great ceremony, and exclaimed joyfully, "Salute the leader." "Salute the leader." Luo Yuan, Qiu Peng, and the other 14 all followed him, bowing in unison to Xia Hong, greeting him synchronously. Seeing Peng Bo, Chen Yingyuan, and the other 4 also bowing with Xia Chuan and others, Xia Hong's gaze moved slightly, looking towards Xia Chuan, waiting for his response. Leader, not only have we taken over the beehive, but also Wushwang. From receiving Xia Hong's message to subsequently coincidentally encountering Jade attacking the beehive, to annihilating Hu Ming and his group, securing the beehive, scouting Yang Lu, attacking Wushwang, Xia Chuan detailed everything that happened in this series to Xia Hong. Yesterday, I noticed anomalies with Wuxing and pursued him to the position of Long Mountain's army, but Li Xuanling's group did not believe me, forcibly saved him, and were deceived by him, thinking Great Xia had messed up Long Mountain's business at Yanglu, pursuing me all the way. After returning to Wushwang, I immediately sent someone back to Xia City to get solidified fire oil. Later, at night, scouts detected movements in the Long Mountain army. I quickly brought people up and saw my brother being hunted by Li Xuanling's group. Not only did they seize the beehive from Zhejiang, but simultaneously took over Wushwang. Connecting this series of events Xia Chuan narrated together, Xia Hong instantly realized the reason for the attempt on him today. From the moment Xia Chuan sent Qiu Peng as an envoy to Long Mountain, Li Xuanling and others not only knew about Great Xia's existence completely, but also linked Great Xia to his alias Hong Xia. Li Xuanling must have sent someone to inform Hu Hu, which caused Hu Hu to realize belatedly his connection with Great Xia. It seemed Hu Hu still did not intend to break ties with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have merely led people back to the inner valley from Hankyang Gourd Valley earlier. Instead, he should have cooperated with Li Xuanling's group to kill him. This shows Hu Hu knows who his greatest enemy is. After deducing the cause of his peril, Xia Hong immediately focused his thoughts on the events at Yangluo Base. Just earlier, using the Eye of Truth, he saw Wuxing's anomaly, which was indeed problematic. "No, you all look at me." Recalling the fiery red substance surrounding Wuxing's body before, along with Xia Chuan's description of the infection characteristics of white dew, Xia Hong instantly sensed something wrong, wiping the wound on his left eyebrow with his hand, cleaning the bloodstains, indicating everyone to look.